Is it better? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the third Public Access Working Group meeting for the Hawthorns Area Plan. We are here and we will have a series of meetings in the next 9 to 15 months together. So the purpose of the POG meeting is to establish an interactive forum of local and regional perspectives to collaborate with Midpen on a plan for introducing ecologically sensitive public access to the Hawthorns area in a manner consistent with the board adopted visions and goals. Today's meeting is hybrid via Zoom and recorded. Thank you for everyone that are joining on Zoom virtually. I will pass it to our Assistant General Manager, Susanna Chen, for opening remarks.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Hi, everyone. I'm Susanna Chen, Assistant General Manager. I'm very, very excited to welcome all of you to the Hawthorns Public Access Working Group's third meeting. We have provided you a lot of information over the last couple meetings to help you get oriented to the site and to the project. Hawthorn is a very small but complex site. We understand there's quite a bit of learning on your part to get up to speed. It's not an easy task. For that, we are really grateful and we really appreciate your efforts. And tonight, you will start the core of your work. And to me, it's also the fun part of your work. We'll be asking you to put what you have learned about the site into work, using your knowledge, using your experience to start exploring the options and ultimately to develop recommendations for the different public access elements, such as parkings, where the driveway should be located, the trailhead location, and also trail alignment. We will be providing you some tools and some ideas to get you going, but ultimately you will be the one as a group to develop the recommendations for our planning and natural resource committee and also our board for considerations. We will allow time for you to go through that process. As Ashley mentioned, there will be multiple meetings to allow you to develop the recommendations. And I see quite a bit of public joining us tonight. I also wanted to mention that, as we mentioned before, this is a year-long process. We really just at the beginning of it. There will be multiple POP meetings and also multiple planning and natural resource committee meeting and board meetings. Those are all public meetings. At each of these public meetings, it will be opportunity for the public to participate and provide feedbacks. So I encourage the publics that are here tonight and everyone else that are interested in this project to continue to engage and come share the ideas and their thoughts with you and with staff and with our board members, because we all can benefit from sharing ideas and wisdoms. So thank you again for your time and your interest. I will just say that your work is serious, but also remember to have fun. With that, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to our project team and also our facilitators. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. My name is Ashley Mack, Planner 3. I'm joined here by my colleague, Tina Hug, Senior Planner. We are co-managing the Hawthorns Area Project at Midpen. Marie Lanka here, our admin assistant, is working behind the scenes, making sure our Zoom platform is properly monitored. And we have Kathy Garrett from PGA Design here. As most of you know, she is our meeting facilitator. We also have our design consultant here, Paul Stevenson from CSW. He will walk you through the parking ideas that you see behind you. Marie, could you share the PowerPoint? For those who are new to Midpen public meetings, Midpen is a public agency formed in 1972 with an elected board of 7 directors. We have protected over 70,000 acres of mountains, foothill, and bayland open space in San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Santa Cruz County. Our 26 preserves are open to the public, free of charge, 7 days a week. Across the 3 counties in Midpen's jurisdiction, we encompass 17 cities, stretching from San Carlos to Los Gatos, and from the Pacific Coast to San Francisco Bay. The Hawthorns area and the Windy Hill Preserve are located here in the middle of this map. Also, our Midpen's mission is to protect open space land, protect and restore natural environment, and provide opportunities for ecologically sensitive recreation and education. Different from public agencies that focus more on recreational use, our district is more focusing on public access as well as natural environment protection and restoration. Here is the board approved vision for the Hawthorns area. I'm going to read it out loud for those who can't see the screen clearly. So the Hawthorns area offers picturesque views of the rolling oak grasslands and the Santa Cruz Mountains, provides important wildlife refuge, and reflects the region's natural, agricultural, and social history. The district will protect and manage natural, scenic, cultural, and open space resources at the Hawthorns area and provide ecologically sensitive public access consistent with the district's mission and the allowable uses outlined in the property's conservation easement. This is the goals that was approved by our board. And basically, the goals are around natural resources, public access, local and regional connectivity, natural and cultural history, aesthetics, as well as operations and maintenance. These informations you probably have seen already at the orientation packet, but we also want to share with you here to give you a review of those information. And the vision and goals was developed in phase 1 of this project. And we are now in phase 3 at the beginning of programming and conceptual planning. I will now pass it to Kathy to go over the meeting agenda today.
Thanks, Ashley. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. I know that, really a lot of people have welcomed you. I want to say welcome again to the PORG, to the public that's here in person and also to the public that's online. Your efforts and engagement is really what is going to make this a success. So to start with just a quick review of the agenda, I think it's helpful to remind ourselves where we're going to be in our journey tonight. We're going to have a public comment period in a moment, and then we're going to just acknowledge the August 26th meeting. If anyone's got any comments, that would be the moment for that. Then we're going to spend a moment and Paul Stevenson is going to walk us through these initial ideas. They're really exploratory for parking, access, potential trailhead, connection off Alpine Road. So that's going to be that conversation. After that, you as a group, the PORG exclusively, have an opportunity to ask questions of the design team. Not so much to opine on it, but really to ask questions to make sure you have all the information you need. After that, we then go to another public comment period. Of course, anyone who's in the public, either online or in the room, will have heard all that you've heard and may have been following it as well. And it's your opportunity to hear the public's point of view. Then we'll close out the public comment period. And really this in many ways is the meat of the meeting for you as a PORG, because you're going to discuss and give feedback to each other about all that we've heard tonight and about priorities and how to move forward. You're going to have an opportunity in breakout groups to discuss in smaller groups and to really look at the drawings. And that's a great opportunity for you to mark comments. You can put them on post-its, we'll record them. And then we're going to select co-chairs. This is something we talked about at the first meeting. And so I'll just put you all on notice. We're looking for 2 co-chairs. I know a few people were talking about it a little bit earlier, and we'll go through that process. And that will be our meeting tonight. So quite a full agenda. My task is to ensure that everyone is listened to, but to also ensure that we keep moving so that we can ensure that we cover the huge amount of material we have in front of us. Briefly, to put in context where we've been and where we're going, as Ashley said, tasks 1 and 2 have been completed. We're now at task 3, conceptual planning and programming. This is a year to a year and a half long process. Tonight is the first time that we will have discussed any alternatives. This is the first of a series of conversations. So there's no final decision going to be made tonight, but there is an opportunity to gather all of the information we need to be able to start to prioritize. After that, there'll be the area plan and environmental review as phase 4, and the 5th will be, of course, implementation. Now, I'm not sure whether we were just looking at that or not, but the point is, I think in another graphic, this shows that phase 3 is where we are, that yellow bar in the middle. And even within phase 3, we are early on in the going. So this, I really want to make the point that this is a robust conversation. No one has any idea where this is going to end. And that's kind of the point. We've been gathering information. And tonight is the first time where we start to see opportunities and perhaps challenges and how we can balance those many things. So the town ad hoc committee, which includes 7 members, representing a range of committees: open space, nature and open space, historic resources, trails and paths, conservation, bicycle, pedestrian and traffic safety, parks and rec. They've been giving us input, and you will have seen it in your packet, and there may be more that we hear going forward, but that's part of the conversation as well. So to introduce the purpose and charge, we talked about this a little bit at the first meeting, and really just to recap that tonight's task is to have this engagement, this conversation. It's going to be interactive, to look at both local to Portola Valley and also regional perspectives, and to really look at introducing ecologically sensitive public access into the Hawthorns area plan. So it's really to do it in a manner that's consistent with the board adopted vision and goals that Ashley was just describing. And the task at hand initially is going to be to place public access components, and they're the ones listed on the screen right now: parking area and driveway, trailhead locations in the internal trail system, trail connections surrounding both town trails and pathways, but also looking at regional trail connections, and then possible trail uses, of course, within the Hawthorns area. So once we've done that, we're going to have developed draft conceptual alternatives, and that will be brought before the Planning and Natural Resources Committee, and then ultimately for board review. So also, just by way of a reminder, we touched on this in meeting number 1, and I know, Tyler, you're here for the first time, so in part for you too, but really for all of us. The procedural guide that outlines how the PORG functions really identifies a number of ground rules. Obviously, attending the scheduled meetings, so that's what we're doing tonight, and the site visits as well, participating in the meeting conversations. So, there's always a dynamic dialogue, and there's always some people who speak a little bit more than others and some people who speak a little bit less. I'm eager to hear from everyone, and I think we all are. So keep an open mind also and be respectful. There may be opinions you hear that are not in alignment with yours. I'm a big fan of civility, and I think tonight is a good opportunity to practice that. Represent stakeholder perspectives. Sometimes you might be representing a particular interest group or a ward, and you can bring that to the table. I really also ask, if you can, to avoid sidebar conversations. They're very easy to fall into, but we are a group of more than a dozen, and of course with an audience bigger than that. And our opportunity here is to have a conversation with all of us in listening range. So if you can avoid sidebar conversations, there's going to be the potential for repetition, and you can acknowledge it, but there's no need to encompass it all again. There's a phrase that is take space and make space. That's the part where you should take a moment and say your opinions. You're encouraged to do that, but you should also step back and listen to other people's opinions. And I think that's a nice way to put it. So also being a liaison for the public, we will all hear points of view from the public. We have already had more than 50 comments from the public that you will have received in your packet. Those are points of view which you need to balance and weigh. You are being the mouthpiece for the public as well. And so just being a liaison for the public. Also to provide ultimately feedback to the district's Planning Natural Resources Committee, and then that will be through the co-chairs that we'll get to later on in the meeting, and then provide opportunities during meetings for members of the public in attendance to address the working group. So it's a rollicking good time. It's going to keep us all very engaged. And with that, I would very much like to ask if there is any public comment. We have people here in person tonight, and I know Marie is going to collect comment cards. There are comment cards on the table right there, and please fill them in and bring them over, and we'll include them. And if you're online on the Zoom, please raise your hand and Marie will handle it.
We have 3 public comments, 1 in person and 2 virtual at this time.
Would the person who is here in person who'd like to give a public comment, please come to the microphone?
Yeah, so this is Karen Askey. If you're here, come on up. We'll go ahead and put the time up.
Thank you. So we'll pass to the Zoom meeting public comment. Thank you for that.
Okay, let me get the timer up. So first we have Christy Corley and then Andrew Valentine. So Christy, if you are online, if you could unmute.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that you did receive my letter sent before 4 o'clock today, if somebody can confirm that.
Hello, we can hear you. Please give your comment.
Okay, so I'm confirming that you received my letter before 4 o'clock today, and that the whole, that 13 people have my letter. Because I'm not going to read it again if so. Basically.
Please go ahead and read it. Thank you.
Okay. Basically, I am not in favor of putting the parking on Alpine Road where we can see it visually. I think it should be located in a non-visually, not located on Alpine Road, with trees removed on our scenic corridor where we have a 75-foot setback. I guess my other comment would be that we need a full traffic report and a recent full traffic report with all arterials accounted for, including the businesses and the schools, meaning Alpine Inn takes in a lot of people daily. They do not serve food on Mondays, so we never want any traffic reports on Mondays. And we also have Corte Madera School out on Wednesdays at noon. And then we do need to include Alpine Swim and Tennis on Alpine Road as well. I think we should assume that this Hawthorns would get heavily used because we know that Windy Hill is number 3 out of 26 parks and as far as usage. So we're already bringing in a lot of people to enjoy the wonderful environment and hiking. And we will probably get high usage at this site as well. I'll probably say some other comments after the other public comment period. Thank you.
Okay, second public comment will be Andrew Barentine. If you could take yourself off mute.
Hi. Yeah, so with all of us enjoying nature and not wanting to destroy it, presumably we also want everyone to be like-minded in those ideals and want everyone to have access to those needs, but don't want to spoil the solitude and freedom of an open trail. And so with that, I can understand why in the last meeting minutes, I read a public comment summary which suggested that fire roads in Hawthorns allow bicycles, but to keep single track for hikers only. And I can understand that, but I can't agree with it any more than you could agree with my suggestion that Hawthorne single track be marked for bicycles only. And for the meeting summary, I'd like to be clear that my suggestion is in fact for single track trails to be bikes only, and to allow equestrians and hikers to share the fire roads with the bicycles. And I feel so emboldened to suggest that because a number of other mid-pen preserves have hike-only and horse-only trails, but I have yet to see a bike-only trail. I get tired of riding on the road with my safety and sanity threatened by car drivers when trails through Las Trancas, Wunderlich, Thornwood, and Huddart preserves would get me where I want to go in an enriching way, but are closed to bikes. And that's obviously not an exhaustive list of no bike preserves in Midpen, but those are the ones with trail markings that regularly limit my access. And I should also mention Alpine Road Trail, which really, just kind of dirt on the side of the road, is restricted from bicycles. And that, of course, is relevant for today's meeting. So with the abundance of hikeable, drivable, horseable preserves in the area, I'd like the working group to remember the 20% of correspondents who said they'd arrive at Hawthorns by bike. And I'd like you to consider that they might like to continue riding in the preserve. And I'll leave you to think about whether that 20% would be higher if Midpen preserves were more open to bike riders in general. And when you consider the uses for these preserves, I'd like you to remember that owning a car or horse is a much more severe ecological and financial burden than owning a bicycle. So with that, thank you for your time and effort in developing public access.
Okay, that is all the public comments we have at this time. Just as a reminder for those who are virtual, if you have a public comment, if you take a look at the top, there's a link. That's where you can submit your comment so we can give you your due time to give your feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. So leaving that first public comment period and before we move into recognizing the August 26th site visit summary, I'd just like to touch on one thing that we covered briefly at the first meeting, and that this is a Brown Act meeting. And that means that just as we submitted the agenda to the PORG and to the public as a whole, that's the agenda we're following tonight. Also, I'd just like to point out that there are appropriate times, as we covered in the agenda for tonight, there are appropriate times for PORG conversation, appropriate times for public input, just as we had, and that adhering to the agenda so that we can have a robust and meaningful conversation to cover the extensive amount of materials we want to cover is the goal for the night. So moving on to the next slide. Is there any comment or actually by way of a show of hands, straight to start with, to approve the meeting summary from the August 26th meeting? If there's anyone who wants to agree, raise your hand and we'll need to do a roll call for a record. So not seeing any, I suppose the better thing to say would be is there anything anyone would like to add to or alter yes, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you to staff for putting together this comprehensive set of minutes. It's fantastic. And great job managing the meeting, which was a challenge for sure. On the discussion of connections to trails outside the Hawthorns property, there was some discussion about solar powered gates. And I thought that might be worth including in the minutes.
Okay, great. So noted. Okay, in that case, seeing no other hands going up about questions, I'm just going to do a voice record. Maybe you can just each say your name and agree if you agree with reviewing and approving the August 26th meeting summary. Starting with you, Carrie.
Charlie Krenz, yes.
Jeff Greenfield, yes.
Rhina Chang, yes.
Sandy Summer abstained since I wasn't present.
Karen Vatra, yes.
Willie Wool, yes.
Rachel Osland, yes. Vivian New, yes.
Tyler Feld abstained because I wasn't present.
Scott Mosher, yes.
Sarah Warnikoff abstained because I had to leave early.
Thank you all very much. So follow-up items, Tina and Ashley will now share some information that was requested at the previous meeting to flesh it out. So over to you, Ashley.
Thank you, Kathy. So the project team is now going to take a moment to address some questions and requests from our previous working group meeting. Here you can see on the screen is a regional trail map. It is based on a question we received, and you can see on the map there are different colors representing different trail uses. And the symbols on the legend help you to identify the kind of uses. And this map it includes Hawthorns area and also the nearby preserves. You can see the Windy Hill, Arrestradero that was brought up a lot, Foothills Nature Preserve, as well as Coal Mine Ridge. And I want to point out the source of the town's trail map is from this map, the town's trail map. You can also find with the link shared on the screen. So also to address, secondly, this comparison chart shows, again, nearby preserves around Hawthorns, including Thornwood, Coal Mine Ridge, Arrestradero, Windy Hill, and the Foothills Preserve. We list them out in terms of the size of the preserve, size comparison, number of parking spaces, visitation. You can see because Arrestradero was brought up a lot in terms of trail uses, here we have, in terms of our research, the size of the preserve is 8 times of Hawthorns, and the number of parking spaces is 40 spaces. So just for you as a reference point. And also want to point out the Foothill Nature Preserve charges a entrance fee, and other preserves on the list is free of charge. In terms of Midpen's policy, all our Midpen preserves that are open to the public are free of charge. We're sharing this so that you can see the trail mileage that are offered at the other preserves for comparison. Now we're going to quickly look at some exploratory ideas for our trails, and Paul will walk you through next some parking and driveway. So before we get ready to discuss the trails, parking design options, I want to bring your attention back to the existing conditions, opportunities, and constraints report, and bring your attention to the constraints map, which you have seen before. And the map illustrates public access constraints identified in the report. there are, as you can see, many considerations in a relatively small area that influence how and where public access improvements could be laid out. So this format allows us to see that there are resource considerations throughout the property that affect parking and trail access. You can see that the topography is steep with high exposed points in the center of the site and with views of the mountain range and the bay and the flat, as well as a wooded riparian area by Los Troncos Creek. You will also note an outline in the middle, which divides the improved and unimproved area, which is identified by the conservation easement. And therefore, the improvements, for example, parking and structures, can only be located in the improved area on the northern part of the property. And the conservation easement, again, is owned by Post. Aesthetic consideration include views in and out the property, as seen in the purple shading, as well as the scenic corridor buffer along Alpine Road. The area in peach shows the historic complex. The long-term use of this project is going to be evaluated in a separate phase. One of the questions we received in August site tour was about potentially incorporate the road into the internal trail system and potentially off-trail use. So the fire road right now on this property, it's roughly short, but it could potentially be used as a future trail. There may be other opportunities to use it as an entry point for parking, which you will see in the concept we're about to show you. In terms of off-trail use, it is not recommended by our natural resources staff because the site is small and the natural resources can be negatively impacted. Also, some of the feedback we received was to possibly walk the potential idea for trail. And because the trail is very constrained and also the vegetation is very dense, we ended up recording some videos and photos you probably have seen in the packet to identify the areas, basically the existing condition of the potential trail. And I'm going to quickly show it to you so you can watch the videos and the photos at a later time. And I also want to point out the videos you're seeing right now, you can see there's a lot of bushwhacking and dense vegetation that the staff and the trail crew are going through. And it is not going to be the final trail because there is no trail right now. The trail construction process will go through a whole brushing and grading, and this is just what the existing condition of the site. So in the video, you can use your mouse and drag around to see the surroundings. So it gives you a better idea in terms of what is behind you, what is on the left and right. And you can do the same thing with the photos as well. And because of the limited time you have at the meeting, we're not gonna walk you through all of the videos, but you can find the links of the videos and photos in your packet. I'm going to pass it back to Kathy.
I know everyone is just dying to get into these initial ideas, and we're going to do that in just a moment. But before we do, I wonder, Tyler, if I might ask you Tyler Feld was not able to attend the first two meetings, and we've had the luxury of being able to connect personally, both on site and in this room. And so we've got a little bit of familiarity, and I think we'd all like to have Tyler sort of blend in with the fold a little bit. So Tyler, would you like to give us a moment's thoughts about what it is that had you become interested in joining the POG, and something that we asked everyone else on the POG to do, to give us one brief childhood experience, which helped helped frame the way that you sense the world around you, and how that, what you bring to this table. Just a minute or two. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so I became interested in Hawthorns specifically through my work with grassroots ecology, doing habitat restoration with community members at the site over the last 2 years. Through this work, I have gotten to know the preserve very well and gotten to know kind of some of the unique characteristics that make it such a really special place. And some things that I'm really passionate about bringing to the POG is just creating ecologically sensitive ways for people to enjoy that land while still preserving the native biodiversity that we have there. Something that helps me frame how I see the world. I had the privilege of living somewhere where I could walk to and from school every day growing up. And even just that little act of walking through a little oak woodland down in Southern California and walking through a tiny little creek, or I felt like it was a very big stream at the time, and it passed for a big stream in Southern California. I really got to appreciate kind of what happens when you're outside. And that has put me to a career path of wanting to engage people in recreating outdoors and making it as accessible to people as I possibly can. And that's something I hope to bring to our work as the POG and to this preserve.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler. So with that, I would like to sort of move into this next piece of the project. I'm going to introduce Chris Stevenson, who is going to, from CSW, who presents the initial design ideas. It's an opportunity for the POG really to clarify your questions. If you see things that come up that you like, make note of them. If you see things that come up that you need to know more about or that you've got some concern about, please make a note of those too. And in so doing, I will say about Paul that he is a landscape architect with 23 years of experience, and he's going to walk us through the location of driveway locations, possible parking, access, and what kind of relationship those elements will have with the site. I'll also say that Andrew Lee is here for questions if there are any to do with traffic and urban planning. Andrew is a registered civil engineer and traffic engineer with Parisi Transportation Consulting, a division of Parametrics. He's also an urban planner. That's a rich and unusual combination, and I think it feeds into the work that we're doing here. So I'm going to invite Paul up if you'd like to dive right in.
Thank you, Kathy and Ashley. So now I get to start talking about the design, which is a fun part of the project. Thank you. So I get to start talking about the design, which is a fun part of the project. And as you can see on the screen right there, or behind me, this is kind of the initial start of the design. We look at the site and kind of do an inventory of what we have. And almost everyone has probably been to the site, walked around the site, so they're very familiar with it and have a good understanding of what it's like being out there. So we've set the program for this design to be looking at the driveway going onto the site, the road entering to the parking lot, and the connection of the parking to the trailhead and the restroom areas. So to start off with the inventory, we've got the Alpine Road and the neighbors across the street. We've got Roberts Market, Nathorst Avenue, Hillbrook Drive, and those connections going on to Alpine Road across from the Hawthorns area. We've got lots of cars and bicyclists going along Alpine Road, so we need to be very concerned about them and how they're incorporated into the connection between our driveway. The Alpine Road Trail is a similar thing, but it's for pedestrians, and we need to really be thoughtful about the connection for the driveway and the Alpine Road Trail. And that right there is the property line right along the Alpine Road Trail. And on the opposite side of the property line, we've got a fire break, and we all walked along that fire break if you were out there. And it's kind of a big swath of dirt area where there's no native vegetation, and that's for fire safety. Below that, we've got the 75-foot setback for the right of way from the right of way for the Alpine Road Scenic Corridor. So going into the site more so, we entered through the existing driveway across the street from Roberts Market. And that is a steep driveway up the hillside. So if you're all either drove up it or walked up it, and so you kind of have a feel of how steep that driveway is. And you go up that driveway to either the staff residence, or you turn around and go down to the Hawthorns meadow, which what we're calling it now. And that's where we all met and parked and started our first site visit out there. And that then extends down to the historic structure complex down around the corner of the Hawthorns meadow. There's also the historical entry, which we walked by on the site visit. It's no longer being used, but it was a historical entry for the historic structure complex. And the historical road is now under the woodland area. You can kind of see it with the black line. It's no longer a road, but it's it's a nice, gentle pathway up to the historic road structure complex. And we've got two high points at either side of those. So those high points kind of allow the Hawthorns meadow to be secluded from the Alpine Road. And the North Meadow is less secluded, and it's more exposed to the Alpine Road. So taking all those things from the inventory into account, that's when we go to the design and we say, okay, we kind of have a good feel for the site. Let's see where we can possibly enter the site. And we've identified 3 locations to enter the site. There's the Hawthorns entry, which is the existing road across the street from Roberts Market. There's the historical entry, which has a gate, but it's no longer being accessed. And then there's an area just to the east of the historical entry, and that's a little clearer. There's less tree cover in that area. And so we thought we'd take a look at putting an entry at that location. So once we get onto the site, we're looking at roads going into the site, into the parking areas. So if we're looking at the Hawthorns entry, we know it's a steep road coming up. We looked at realigning that road, so you wouldn't have to go up as high in elevation to go back down into the Hawthorns meadow. It also created the opportunity to create a staff drive. So the staff residents would have a branch off of that road, and they'd have visibility onto the parking area every time they came and went from the staff residence. And the kind of secondary area we looked at for a road was coming from the historical or east entry and kind of going up along the same alignment as the historical drive. And we wouldn't go on the historical drive because there's so much growth there and so many trees. We wanted to disrupt that, but we'd kind of go along parallel to it in the grassland. And kind of the last connection would be if there was a potential parking area parallel to Alpine Road, we'd have a short little connector to that area. So those are the driveway and the road onto the site. And then we have identified kind of 4 different areas to look at for the parking on the site. The first area is kind of encompassed entirely in the Hawthorns meadow. So that's the first one. The second one, we use the Hawthorns meadow for parking and then branch out a little to kind of have less impact on the Hawthorns meadow, just because the first scheme did have a large footprint. The third option we had is between the Hawthorns meadow and the North meadow, and we've had a nice little levelish area in there. and thought that would be a nice place to kind of bring it off Alpine Road, not impact the North Meadow, and provide just an alternate location. And the fourth option we've looked at is right along Alpine Road. This one would be ideal in the terms of it would be along the fire break and it would have less impact on the site. So we kind of take a look at all these considerations, and right now it's shown on the screen. It's not really defined, but we're kind of just taking the design and seeing what the site offers to us. As you can kind of see on the notes at the bottom, we may not be able to read it at this size, but all the driveways and entrances will have extensive grading and tree removal, some more than others. The driveways will both have the same. They'll have extensive grading and impact to the natural area, and the parking area the same. So we just need to take those things into consideration when we're looking at the design. So this is the first option here. It uses the Hawthorns entry across from Roberts Market. We'd adjust the Alpine Road Trail at the driveway entrance to make it a safer connection for the people going through on the Alpine Road Trail and the cars coming in on the driveway. We'd use part of the existing alignment for the road going into the site and then adjust it so you wouldn't have to go up as high into the site and then back down into the Hawthorns Meadow. And as I mentioned before, it would also allow the staff residents to have eyes on the site or the parking lot every time they came and left from it. This is a steep road going up, and then it's a steep road going down into the parking area. So that would cause the kind of upper end of the parking area to be on a more of the sloped area, not like where we all met and parked down to start off the tour last time. So the upper end of the parking lot would be a little steeper, and then it would level out as it went through. The driving pattern of this option, it kind of has two ways coming in, and then once you hit the parking area, you'd have a one-way loop road. That would allow people to kind of go in, they loop around, and once they hit that intersection back towards the exit, they could make a choice of either looping around again to look for parking, go drop someone off at the trailhead, or decide to exit the site. And so this is kind of the ideal circulation pattern where you give people an option to make a choice as they reach that T intersection at the end of the parking area. One of the kind of impacts of bringing the parking into the Hawthorns Meadow is you don't have as much surveillance from Alpine Road Trail. So if police or fire were driving along Alpine Road Trail, they couldn't see the parking area. So that's one of kind of the drawbacks of putting it in the Hawthorns Meadows, as well as impacting the Hawthorns Meadow. So the second option we looked at for the Hawthorns Meadow was using the existing entry and the road alignment and bringing it all the way up and kind of having a smoother transition at the top of the hill and going back down. This is more of the alignment if you drove in on our site visit that we saw, and so or that you even experienced. So this is just an alternative, although we'd kind of prefer to not go up as far onto the site and also have the access from the staff residents to kind of view into the parking area. If this was the option, they'd have less view into the parking area when they went off to their staff drive. This option has, as you can see, kind of, it goes less up the hillside on the entry drive. So before you hit the parking, it'll hit the more level area, and the parking will all relatively be level, whereas the first option, the first part of the parking area was a little more on the slope. So people would be able to drive two-way through the parking area and look for a parking space, and they could drive all the way through to the end, loop around, drop people off, and turn around, make an easy turnaround to go back and exit the site. As mentioned before, the Hawthorns area, or the Hawthorns Meadow, there's less visibility from Alpine Road, so that doesn't allow police or fire to kind of view the site with just driving by on Alpine Road. A nice thing about this option also is that it doesn't really impact North Meadow as much. And so that was just leaving that a little more pristine. So the third option we have here is it's not touching the existing Hawthorns entry across from Roberts Market at all. It's not touching the entry road to the staff. It's leaving them with their own separate access. And then we'd add another entrance to the Hawthorns area at near the historical drive, and it's what we're calling the east entry. And there'd be less tree removal if we used it, this entrance point right here, and the slope wouldn't be as steep as the first two options going from Alpine Road up to the parking area. And it's kind of a nice gradual slope up to the parking area. Similar to parking option number 1, it's more ideal to have this type of layout for the parking because people could loop around, look for parking. They'd hit that T intersection when they went through the parking the first time, and they could decide to exit or loop back around and look for more parking. This causes less problems with people queuing or stacking or making awkward turns when they're in the parking area. And also, as I mentioned, it doesn't touch the Hawthorns meadows. That's a big aspect of having parking on this side of the site. And finally, the last option, option number 4 we have here, it brings in people at the historical entrance, and then has a short entry drive and has double loaded parking for parts of the driveway and goes right along the fire break. And this would be beneficial because the fire break right now, it doesn't have vegetation. The parking area would serve as the fire break, and you wouldn't have, you'd basically having double use as a fire break and a parking area, and less impact on the site because the roads are going to be shorter going in. So people could enter the site, look for parking, loop around, and exit. And so this is one of the key aspects of this option. And as mentioned with the other options, how there wasn't police or fire visibility from Alpine Road, this option is the only one that allows for police or fire to drive by, look into the site, and kind of see what's happening in the parking area without actually going into the site and exiting the site. So that's one of the benefits of having the parking along Alpine Road Trail. So yes, Alpine Road. Thank you. So those are the 4 options. We've had a lot of fun working with MidPen, kind of coming up with them. We've gone through a lot of different iterations. And I don't know, are there any questions? Yes. They're 40-foot diameter and they accommodate Woodside fire trucks. So yes, it should accommodate a school bus.
Rhino.
My first really quick question is, I looked at the cons for the option 4, where it says there's grading into the lower North Meadow may require walls. And is it just that why is that listed as a con? Like what's bad about it? The extensive grading or the?
Well, I think this is one option where we identified kind of where there would need to be a wall, because as we walk through the site down there, they've got the fire break and it's relatively level, but we're sort of expanding into the hillside. And so we'd need to put a wall along the south edge, along that south edge of lawn parking. A retaining wall, yes. Correct,
So
correct.
did you get, I would love like a comparison chart that could say kind of per option, which one requires more grading, which one requires more tree removal? Do you have a sense of that?
Yes, we have a sense. It's hard to give exact quantities at this level, because if you kind of think back to the first slide where it was a bubble diagram, even though these options have kind of thought behind the parking stalls and sizes, it's hard to really give a quantity to what the grades will actually be at this stage of the process. So it's really schematic.
Well, perhaps you could just in order of least grading to most grading, least tree impact to most impact, recognizing that that's just a relative measure. Would that help, Bryna?
Yes, that would help. Just if possible at all. And if it's a guess, caveating that it's a guess, I think that would help all of us because
Yeah.
if we were interested in minimizing grading or tree removal, having kind of a forced rank order would help us.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of say, like, as I go through the options, kind of, let me start off with the first slide here. So kind of when you look at the Hawthorns entry, you can say there's 2 oak trees on each side, and those are probably going to need to be removed based on widening the driveway. The same is true for the historical entry. We've got trees on each side, and there'll be some tree removal there. The reason we chose the east entry is because there was only one smaller tree in that location, and we could say, okay, well, we'll have less tree removal there. In terms of parking area number 1, that probably has the most grading that's required for the parking area. And the parking area number 2 probably has the least amount of grading. I don't want to rank them at this point and say this would be 1, 2, 3, and 4 because it's really hard at this stage to say the amount of grading. But I can kind of see option 2 being the least amount of grading in the parking area, and kind of option 1 being the most. So I don't know. I don't want to lock myself into saying something that's like I haven't really fully thought through. I mean, but
that's
yeah, I
helpful.
understand.
And maybe as we as a group start narrowing things down, then you can weigh in also with respect to those questions.
Yeah. But looking at the roads going into the site, it's clear to me that the existing driveway, there probably need to be the most extensive grading for that option going into the Hawthorns meadow. Whereas the historical entry or the east entry, even though going up to option 3, it's a long road, it's a gentler slope, and there would need to be less grading than option 1 or 2. And then option 4, having the right along Alpine Road would be the least grading at the driveway, and then kind of the biggest impact would be along that southern edge where we said there would be a wall. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Thanks, Paul. Let's go Sandy, Helen, Jeff.
Great, thanks. I was wondering, I don't remember the POG getting any information about, you mentioned that some of the options don't allow for visibility for police and fire from Alpine Road, but I haven't heard us talk about in the POG anything about how Midpen typically patrols its parking facilities. And so I'm wondering if we could get some information about, how much of that patrol is done by Midpen staff versus, law enforcement staff. Because I think if that's something we need to consider, we should know more about it.
Sure. So Chris Baresi, Area Superintendent. The majority of the patrol would be by Midpen staff rangers. If there's a 911 call or something like that, then the sheriff's department would also be alerted. And fire department respond to 911 calls. All the routine patrol opening and closing is district staff.
Thank you. Can I ask my other question or should I let someone else go?
You've got the floor.
Okay, so looking at the report about the parking demand, how did you choose 50 stalls versus one of the other amounts? The range that it lists is 25 to 68, which is a pretty big range.
Andrew, our traffic consultant, will take that.
Sure. Good evening. This is a range that was provided, and largely it is a first guess at what's going to be accommodated on the site. And so I don't want to represent as though that 50 spaces is an exact parking demand. It's within the range of what we were expecting based on the characteristics of parking demand at other preserves, particularly at Windy Hill, and the type of visitors that would be attracted to the site. And so I think right now 50 was something a bit on the higher end based on peak demand. And so that's what we're trying to accommodate for the time being.
Thank you. Sandy, just to reflect back on the numbers that Ashley presented in Aristodero, 8 times the size of the Hawthorn site, but has 40 spaces. There's some concern about overflow parking there, so I think that puts in a little bit of context. Helen, then Jeff.
Yeah, actually, my question was very similar to Sandy's, but I'd like to ask Chris one more thing. So it seemed in your statement that oversight from police and fire going along Alpine Road is not that important. The gates are closed at night, and during the day, the rangers are coming through. So this was mentioned for everyone, whether this was a pro or a con, and it's the only one of the pros and cons that you mentioned as you spoke. So my question to you is, am I correctly interpreting your statement that it's really what matters for these parking lots is the ranger oversight during the day, and because they're closed at night, the fact that the rangers, other than you, are not there at night is not a big drawback for having it where it's not against the road?
It is a benefit to be able to see it from the road before you actually pull in. For example, if you're going to close Windy Hill and maybe you're on your way to the Windy Hill parking lot and you look and you see, oh, it's empty, so I don't need to pull in there right now. I'll go over to Windy Hill and then come back. Or, it's closing time and you see there's still a car there. Oh, I better go check it out. So it is a pro to be able to see in. I can think of some of our other parking lots off Skyline where as you're approaching, you can see the entire lot. So you know exactly what's going on even before you pull in. But there's so many
Pros and cons.
circumstances where, it could be helpful, but it's a minor pro, I'd call it. And it's not a deal breaker if it's not visible from the road.
Okay,
I'd
thank
put
you.
it that way, yeah.
And for the planner, same site number 4, it seems to me where you've placed it interferes with the plan to move Alpine Trail back and essentially have Alpine Trail go along the fire break.
Yeah, having the parking there would affect where the trail could go, but we haven't fully looked at kind of the Alpine Road Trail in this area. So it's hard to really say how would it affect it other than the Alpine Road Trail wouldn't be in the parking areas. So
Well, it can't be in the parking area.
yeah, exactly.
So the parking area would either have to move back or Alpine Trail would have to go all the way around the parking area. Or stay where it is.
Yeah, those are the options.
Okay, thank you. And second question, which is in looking at these options, you talked a little about the slopes and the grading, but the other question is not just the grading, but whether it's possible to make it a road that people can drive with a relatively low-lying car, because certainly the current configuration of the road is not. So when the one where you have it pretty much the current road, that you've changed that one corner, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
So yeah, you didn't move it as far as you do in this option, but go back to the next one. I think it's that one.
Yes.
That's not the current road. That's a change in the
it's-
road at that corner?
It's almost identical. If you can see kind of where it's kind of the curved
Yes.
top. The existing road is a much tighter turn, so
Yeah.
it's almost identical up to
Except
where
at
it
that
starts
corner.
curving.
Right. Thank you.
I think we had Jeff, then let's go to Rachel, and I saw, yeah, Sarah and Scott.
Thank you. I appreciated Brian's comments asking for a chart or table of comparison. I think it'd be helpful to get some objective data that includes the slope or the maximum slope of each of the options, and also more details on the number of trees removed.
Okay.
If you can include that.
Yeah, I
please.
think when I looked at the initial grading, I think the current driveway that we walked up and drove up, that's almost a maximum of 20% slope going up to that drive. And even if we did change the configuration, it would still approach that kind of 18 to 20% slope on that driveway, just because it's going up that steep slope. And it's just really, the realignment just reduces the height that you have to drive up and back down.
Thanks. I think we have pretty good subjective information on, but if there's more specific numbers that could be added without too much effort, that would be helpful. Regarding Arastadero and the parking numbers there, I wanted to make the observation that there is significant overflow parking on Arastadero Road outside of the Palo Alto city limits, but in the Los Altos Hills city limits. So with respect to the slide that you offered showing the comparison preserves and parking, it would be helpful to have some note of what the overflow conditions are there, whether there is overflow or not, and to the extent that's possible to include numbers on that. Regarding the traffic study, there've been a number of community comments about questioning the data that's being presented and how applicable it may be, being an older study and not being directly applicable to the site. I was wondering if staff or the consultant can comment to us to how should we feel about these concerns of the community?
So we've been engaged with the town's public works department, and when we initiated the traffic study about 6 to 9 months ago now, we did request their latest traffic counts and their traffic surveys. Those data were not available when we prepared that draft report, and so it is in our to-do list before we finalize our study to incorporate the latest data. But we do acknowledge that there is newer data that the town has collected, and it was not an oversight on our part. We definitely reached out in order to get that data, and it just wasn't available at the time.
And is there an understanding of how the data is collected? How many different days it's collected on? What periods of time during the day? What seasons and months of the year when there'll be variations?
Yeah, that data is collected on the purview of the town. They engage in periodic counts for their traffic study purposes, and I think the ones before were like 4 or 5 years old. And so the newest data, per my understanding, was that it was collected across about a week or so at multiple locations throughout the town. It's pretty common in terms of practice to count during a period that you can relate back to a prior period, just to see the change as it occurs. It's certainly to the purview of the town, to their discretion, whether they want to engage in counts over multiple seasons. But frankly, while there is some sort of seasonal variation as it relates to school traffic and recreation, there's generally a pretty tight band of traffic demand, within 5 to 15% most periods. And so when we look at that, we try to consider whether that demand could be a constraint on the roadway capacity. And so when we get the newest data, we'll certainly consider that.
Great, thank you. And I appreciate that the number 50 is a first stab, but I think it's going to be a critical number to understand in terms of how the overall impact of the community and what we need to be planning for. Last observation, there's no bike parking included here. Presumably that's something that can be added more easily at the end, but I would hope that there would be some bicycle parking accommodation both at the Alpine Road entrance so that someone could ride up to the preserve and park their bike outside without having to go on the dirt roads as well as in the main parking area.
Yeah, I can speak that the parking demand study actually forecasts that a significant number of people will be traveling there on bicycle, and it is one of the recommendations that it be included as part of the overall parking solution for the Hawthorns site.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I think we're going to go Rachel, Sarah, Scott, and Carrie, and Vivian in that order.
So a number of residents have expressed concerns about the impact of traffic coming in and out of the preserve and along Alpine Road. And there are 3 different entrances shown in some of these parking studies. And so I was wondering if there's any information about just if some of those will also have more impact or just the safety of coming in and out, merging in. I noticed there's the new apartments that were being built that we saw across the street when we were on site. And for instance, the Hawthorns entry that we used when we visited in August is just across from Roberts. So there's a clean, across the street point and more of an intersection, whereas the east entry is between 2 different side streets. So that might have more of an impact. Can you just talk a little bit more about how that might kind of all fit together too, bigger picture?
Sure, absolutely. I think a lot of the points you touch on strike to the heart of the discussion here, which is that there are no perfect access points, no perfect solutions. They all have their respective trade-offs. I can speak to the Hawthorns entry across the street from Roberts Market in terms of the objective site constraints, which are, it is, as you say, closer to an established commercial activated area. It's not that far away from the Portola Road intersection. And so while there is a lot of traffic, vehicular traffic, as well as foot and bicycle traffic, I think there's a greater awareness that there are interactions between the various modes. And so people perhaps may be more mindful when accessing the site. It's also flatter. It is closer to the top of the slope. And so for people going downhill, they are closer to the apex and beginning their acceleration downhill if going towards the north. For the other access points farther north and east, I would characterize are at the midpoint of the downhill part of Alpine Road. And in terms of the tree cover, it is thicker, it is more shaded. And so compared to the Hawthorns access near Roberts Market, there is less tree cover and more direct sunlight. So those factors all play into the ability for people using the site and accessing to perceive other users, whether they be on the road or pulling out of the driveways. There are also the aspects of trees and how they may impede the sight distance. And then, of course, topography, the hillside, and those things are not immutable. That they could be changed. Construction can modify them, but they are existing constraints. And so these access points have their benefits and trade-offs for sure.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Scott.
Yes, questions for staff. I know that the historic complex is out of scope for this POG, but just wondered if they have any sense of will there be additional parking that would be implemented in the historic complex? Or is this parking that we're talking about now intended to cover not just the area that we're talking about, but also the historic complex eventually when that's opened?
Susanna Chan, Assistant General Manager. Very good questions. I think it's too premature for us to guess what is the parking demand at the historic complex. We are at the really early stage of considering some potential option of reuse or rehabilitate the historic complex. So as for what we are doing right now as the area plan, we're focusing right now, it's on meeting the demands of the public access for the area outside of the historic complex. We will be, as we move forward with the historic complex evaluations, if there's information that available that can inform this process, if the timing works out, we will definitely share those information with the group. But at this point, it's too premature for us to guess.
Great, thank you.
Carrie.
Thank you. In option number 1 with the slanted parking, would one of those double spots be available to a horse trailer? Could that be accommodated?
I don't believe there's enough room for horse trailers in this parking scheme. I think the turnaround radius for a horse trailer is just too large.
Okay. In your access comment about safety, you mentioned bicycles, cars, and pedestrians, and you didn't mention equestrians. And I think that should be considered
Thank you.
at the
Noted.
entrance. And my last question is there equal cell reception at all the different parking lot locations?
We don't know if the cell coverage in the different parking locations, I would assume they're all equal, but we don't know for sure.
Thank you.
Vivian and then Karen.
So I'm still a little hung up on the number of spaces. And maybe this also could play into the question about equestrian, is that because this is a much larger number than say Thornwood, which is the next largest by space. So a couple questions. Is there a formula for number of visitors based on size? Because this is a really tiny preserve.
Yeah, we did make our best estimate, and I have to say it was a combination of factors, not only by size, but also with its proximity to Windy Hill, and also with the consideration of whether Hawthorns would connect to the other preserves in the area. The assumption we're operating off of right now is that there would be connections to these other preserves. And so part of the consideration for the parking here is that people visiting may not only be visiting for the sole purpose of Hawthorns, that they may want to chain their trip to travel to other preserves by various modes. And also that it could serve users that wanted to visit a different preserve, but were not able to find parking and decided to come to Hawthorns as a secondary choice. And so it's not as though its attractiveness is necessarily proportional to its size, but rather there's also consideration of what Hawthorns is near and what Hawthorns could also serve in addition to itself.
So then, thank you for that. But just a related question with regard to the equestrian, if the number of spaces were reduced, say even by half, would there then be space for equestrian parking?
We didn't study it at this point. I know that equestrian parking does take up a lot of space. And just off the top of my head, I think it would be difficult to park on this site with equestrian, but we really haven't studied it to give it a definitive answer.
Thank you, Vivian. Karen and Tyler and Willie. Thank you.
Would it make any sense? It seems like there's some advantage to parking lot 3 to use parking lot 3, but move it to the Hawthorns entry. Would that combination at all work?
Yes, it would be possible. I mean, these driveways and parking areas and roads go into the driveways. It's kind of like a kit of parts where, kind of like you said, you could take this driveway and use this parking lot, and that is possible. I think we just came up with these 4 options because we wanted to limit it to not 10 or something. So I think these are the options we came up with for this. But yes, you're correct.
Tyler.
Hi. We were discussing the amount of trees that would have to be removed in different areas. Were there any other surveys or assessments of other ecological impacts of these different plans being developed? I think particularly about the dusky-footed wood rats, and I know along the historic drive in that woodland and in the woodland behind the Hawthorns meadow, there is a really high concentration of them and wouldn't want their habitat to be quite as impacted. And it would be a little less impacted in option 4.
Yeah, I think there's minimal impact on the dusky-footed wood rat on all the options. I think the Hawthorns meadow that we're talking about, we've taken the parking area away from the woodland on the uphill side, so they wouldn't be affecting any dusky-footed wood rat nests in that area.
Willie.
I have a question about parking area or design number 4. I think the local residents were concerned about visibility from Alpine Road. Is there a good tree cover there? Can you obscure the parking lot with trees?
I think the tree cover there right now is fairly dense. So kind of like we talked about the police and fire being able to see in, they could see in, but it would be difficult to see in through all those trees, and we'd really have to study it more to give a more definitive answer of how visible it would be. But given the tree cover that's there, I think it would provide a fair amount of obstruction from the cars driving by.
Oh, before Brenna asks the next question, I just want to clarify in terms of the number of parking spaces, this number of 50 is not set to stone. Therefore, that's why we provided in the packet the traffic study showing a range of number of parking spaces. And it's up to you guys, the POG, to decide what would be appropriate number of parking spaces or potentially phase 1 and overflow parking.
Thanks, Ashley. Bryna, did you have a question?
I have a couple. To follow up on Ashley's comment, where would we put additional parking if we needed more than 50? Which of these options could actually accommodate more than that, where we would decide to do that?
Well, I think kind of like I was saying about it being a kit of parts, all the option number 2 with parking in the Hawthorns area and option number 3 with the area in the adjacent, those 2 areas could be combined. I'm not saying they would be combined, but it's kind of, if you look at it as a kit of parts, all roads and driveways and parking areas are potential areas where you can add parking that we've identified. And so, yeah, connecting them or adding on is possible, but it's kind of just given what's desired from the working group.
Okay, thanks. So back at the site visit, I had asked a question about the 75-foot setback rule. And it looks like, based on your drawings, at least, that a parking lot is allowed to be within that 75 feet. Can you confirm that?
Yeah.
So the language in the town definition of the 75-foot setback is a little bit ambiguous. It appears that the parking lot would lie within the 75 feet and seems to comply. A structure such as a bathroom, not so much. Obviously, at the end of the day, it needs to be something that comes. Yep, that's true. Thank you, Sarah. So that's true. That's great. And so, you know, obviously the desire to hold back, to use the existing vegetation cover that's there, and to, of course, site the bathroom in a position that would be outside it.
Okay, thanks. What type of road would be going to the parking area? So, and what is the parking area going to be gravel? So is the road to the parking area also gravel, or is it asphalt? Do we know anything about what you were thinking when you came up with these options?
We haven't decided on the materials yet. We do want to have minimal impact on the site, so we're going to study the different types of materials to use in the parking areas and the roads going in. There's certain areas where you'd need more asphalts, like the driveway entrance onto the site, because there's more traffic going in, but that's something we need to study further. But our ultimate goal is to have the least amount of impact on the land as possible.
Okay. And then
Oh, I also want to follow up on that. So the material for the driveway and parking area needs to be reviewed by Post, because they manage the conservation easement. So if this group decide on what kind of material, we would go ahead and negotiate with Post. So they prefer natural materials such as gravel. But if there's other options that you're considering, we can definitely bring it up with them.
So I would like to ask the consultant if there's limitations based on grade, because the different options, like, or limitations based on grade or any other factor, because the length of the road, the grade of the road, they're all different for the various roads to the parking lot itself.
I think in general, like the existing road up to Hawthorns, how I said it was 20% going up. You'd need more robust roadways in areas like that. I need to go back and talk with our civil engineers to really determine what those materials would be. But just as a rule of thumb, the steeper the road, the more robust kind of roadway you'd need. So
yeah, I could see a big erosion risk for the steep one if we didn't use the right stuff. So I wanted to ask a follow-up question to a line of questioning we were asking earlier about how many of Midpen's lots are set back from the road and not as easily patrolled from the road by police and fire. What's spurring this question is because I think that this particular preserve is adjacent to heavily populated areas, more so, I believe, than other preserves, and therefore that may create more of a need for patrolling.
I don't have a specific number off the top of my head. Like, for example, Thornwood, many of us may be familiar with, there's a long driveway into a small parking lot. Most of our parking lots are situated alongside the roads. And even in some of the more urban interface parks down in our foothills area, the same is true. I think it's, you know, less impact to have shorter driveways to get to the parking lots. And then alongside, you know, one of the big things in terms of visibility, it's not just Midpen, but, you know, parks and open spaces are prime targets for auto burglaries throughout the Bay Area and beyond. So the more visibility, the better in that sense for safety. So that's just one other comment to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else? Yeah, Sandy.
I wanted to ask, so I understand from some of the public comments that in addition to the development that's roughly across the street, the residential development that's starting construction, that there's also some other planned development in the Alpine Road corridor housing. I'm not sure of the nature of it. And so what I was wondering is how do you intend to account for the planned future development in the transportation studies? I understand that the town is mostly counting existing traffic, but if there's additional development, how would you account for that in, looking at this as you go forward?
Sure, I can answer that. In terms of new development in the town, it is the responsibility of the developer to work with the town to do traffic forecasts and to assess their impact. And so to the extent that that information is available to Midpen, we will incorporate that data into our traffic study. Given that future development is an ongoing process and not certain, a lot of times what we draw on is a town general plan, which dictates what future development is allowed. And we try to develop forecasts, or the town, if it embarks on a traffic study, will try to do traffic forecasts to encapsulate that potential future development. And so there are defined processes on making future forecasts for traffic related to development.
Thank you. And what point would all that come up in terms of the process? Either the POG or the process after we're released to the wild? What point would that come up?
That's going to be part of traffic access as it relates to operations, but also safety, are going to be incorporated into the technical report that will conclude with this study. And so part of what we will be doing specifically to the Hawthorn site is based on the parking lot that the POG ultimately decides to pursue, the size. Then we can estimate a reasonable forecast for activity, and whether it be during peak hours, which is typically what traffic studies are trying to accommodate or to consider, commute peak hours, versus off-peak hours, which for at least for some preserves tend to be more of the high demand periods. And so those peak demands are not necessarily coincident. And so we will be accounting for that, which is why, ideally we don't see peak preserve demand coincident with commute demand and resulting in a worst case scenario.
So are you saying that there will be a technical report prepared while the POG is still in the situation, or will that come after we're
That's
done?
we're preparing the technical report
Okay,
now as we
great.
speak. Yeah.
Wonderful. Jeff, I thought I saw your hand, and Helen, you too? Thank you.
Yes, thanks. My first question was, when would the technical report be available? And so before we make a recommendation soon, or after we make a recommendation soon?
I'm going to have to check with staff to make sure that I have the timing right. I don't recall the exact schedule, so I need to get back to you on that.
That's important to understand. Thank you. And related to the safety issue, there have been community comments regarding fire emergency evacuation issues and concerns with how much parking we would be adding into the Hawthorn site. Will that be included in your safety
absolutely.
assessment? Of course. Thank you. And there were also some public comments regarding the consideration of parking reservations. I understand that there are some Midpen sites that do have parking reservations. I'm interested in understanding what criteria dictates whether or not to consider parking reservations for a site.
I believe that travel demand management is something that we are considering, but have not decided whether would be appropriate for Hawthorns. So I need to check with staff about that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Midpen has a reservation set up right now.
I can. Yeah, sorry. Chris Bressy, Area Superintendent. So we do have some areas, maybe 3, that we issue permits for those are kind of temporary or areas that are not open to the general public yet. For example, Lahonda Creek Event Center for equestrian and now hiking parking there. We have not planned and developed parking, but it's existing, and so we allow it by permit. And that's just one example.
Okay, so so in general, it's not something that's done frequently within the Mid-Penn system, and it is, I guess, as we look to, it's part of the parking equation. Is this something that the staff would think would be something to consider, or let's look in a different direction?
Yeah, so also very good questions, because they're actually related to earlier questions about how many parking spaces we can build on this site and what is enough, right? We can probably all agree that we will not, in a lot of cases, we will not be building enough parking spaces to accommodate the demands. And that's happened on some of the other popular preserves that Midpen has. And in those preserves, we're looking for different options to manage the parking demand. For example, in Rancho San Antonio, as you know, it's one of our most popular preserves, and we welcome over 1 million visitors each year. And the parking demand over there is definitely high during peak hours. And we've been working to look for transportation demand management strategies to manage the parking demand. And parking reservation is one of the strategies that we're considering, but there's other strategies that we looked at. For example, we're studying shuttle program, we're looking at rideshare program, we implemented a carpool pilot program. We also put in dynamic signs that provide real-time parking information that people can access through our website. So there's a slew of options that we are evaluating. So for this particular location, we were looking into we try our best to estimate and look at maximize the parking spaces on site. But if there's need to look for those transportation demand management strategies, we can definitely look into that.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the balance between putting a finite amount of parking, and if you build parking, they will come, but you got to cut it off at some point. But this does lead to the concern about overflow, and no matter what we do, presumably there's going to be cases where people arrive, they look to go to the site and there's no parking for them. And then what do they do? Where do they go? What impacts are created? And what are we proactively going to do in terms of looking for potential overflow parking sites that businesses or clubs in the area that might have off-peak times for themselves, that might be peak times for us to consider?
Right. I think Chris probably can add to it, but I can start that in some of the other locations, and we work with the local jurisdictions to manage the off-site parking. So to limit the parking, restrict parking in nearby local street, that is one way to kind of address the overflow parking. So I don't know, Chris, you have other things?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And there's no parking on Alpine Road there for good reasons. And,
yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Helen, and are there other questions? Okay, Helen, thank you.
Do the traffic surveys survey bicycle use? Alpine Road is an incredibly popular bicycle route. And both at noon during the week and in the weekends, there are packs of bikes that go through there, not just single bikes. So thinking about what the count of bicycles is, because I think the safety element of car bicycle is probably the most dangerous thing at the entrances to this preserve, given that traffic on Alpine Road. Do we have any idea of what the bicycle counts are and when they are?
I just want to acknowledge that the the inherent challenge of dealing with people driving and people on bike. It's at the forefront of what we're trying to consider for the access. So that's, I'm definitely got that on my mind. In terms of the counts, we're working with the town. I don't have access, or I haven't received the latest traffic report. The last version of the traffic report that I saw was exclusively vehicle traffic counts. And so I don't want to speak and say that the town's latest report doesn't have bike counts. I need to get back to you on that. Given all that, a lot of the traffic considerations out there are for commute peak hours. And while there are certainly weekday bicycle rides, I'd have to hypothesize that on weekends, the demand is even higher. And that means, in most cases at least, that the vehicle traffic is lower than weekday demand. And so there will be some balancing out, or at least some moderating of that peak demand. Long story short, I need to get back to you. I need to see the newest data because I don't have it yet.
Charlie, then Karen.
Yeah, will that latest traffic report be post-pandemic, the data that it's based on?
Yeah, I mean, the town posts that information on their website. That's how we received the last version of that report, I believe. And so it's public record.
It's much more recent than that.
Oh, post-pandemic, excuse me, I'm sorry, I misheard your question. Yes, I mean, if you consider the pandemic over, I think they collected it last year.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Los
thank you.
Trancos entrances have been eliminated effectively from this discussion. And I understand it's because of we're somewhat restricted sightlines. On Russian Hill and the Mendigo, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, Mendigo entrance, the CEQA study allowed limited sightlines. And that was done in 2019 or 2017. Quite recently, that area was open. And I understand that that is a safety consideration for cars, but when I look at Alpine and the safety considerations for bicycles, how do we make that trade-off between what is really, in a sense, safer or not safer when you've got two kind of competing safety considerations?
If I may ask for a clarifying question
Sure.
there, is the question specific to Alpine, or are you also interested in like an access off of Los Trancos?
I'm interested in access off those triangles, but more of a general question of how do you make that safety trade-off? Because Los Trancos has a lot less traffic and has very few bicycles in comparison. And so from that perspective, it's far safer for an entry point, even if the sightline consideration is there too. But how do you make that trade-off? Safety consideration A versus safety consideration B.
Sure. Well, I can say definitively that Los Trancos, any potential access point off of Los Trancos does not meet the stopping sight distance requirements that are laid out in roadway design manuals. And it would be highly inadvisable for it to be an access point for a parking lot the size of what we are considering right now, because of the volume of traffic that would be coming in and out. And also that there would be greater access in both directions. And so the sight distance coming around some of those curves on Los Trancos, if there is a car stopped waiting to turn into the site, would be much more challenging compared to its historical use, which was primarily residential and much lower volume. So just given the order of magnitude of vehicles that could be accessing Hawthorns, the scale of the street on Los Trancos is problematic. Compared to Alpine Road, acknowledging its issues with mixed modal traffic and slope, it has a much straighter alignment. And so based on my professional judgment, there's greater opportunity to try to put in some improvement measures that can address and mitigate some of those traffic concerns that we're working through. And that's part of what we're trying to do with picking the right access point.
Thanks, Karen. Are there any more questions before we go to public comment? Any further Yeah, Sandy.
I had some questions, but they weren't about the parking, options. They were sort of related to other things. Are we gonna be able to go through this when
So-
we're talking about the trail loop and some of the other?
The order of business now is to open public comment when we've heard all of the POG's questions for the designers. And then we're going to break into two groups to look at any option to do with the public access for the Hawthorns area property. So yes, at that moment would be a moment to do that. And then we'll report back to the group as a whole and have a conversation and start to sort of filter and prioritize.
Okay, cool.
We are discussing any of the issues that we have on the POG's plate. So Tina, Ashley, anything further on that?
I had a question about the process, so that doesn't seem to fit with the agenda very well. I just wondered when I should ask it.
I'm so impressed by the really robust discussions about parking. But as I mentioned earlier, you are responsible for provide recommendations for the different public access elements, including trails. So we have, because of other material in front of you, you asked really good questions, and hopefully we answer your questions about parking. We also want you to look at trails alignment. We have one of the maps up there that provides some information about the constraints of the site, and that is kind of the base map for you. And we wanted, when you have the opportunity to break into small group, we invite you to use that as the base map, as kind of keep those constraints in mind, and also look at where the trail should go. We want to hear from you, and that is going to be your opportunity. And tonight it's one of the opportunity. Obviously, we will continue that conversation in future meetings.
Ask away, Sandy.
Okay. Great. So regarding the process, we've talked about how the POG will do its thing and come up with its recommendations, and then that will be provided to the Planning of Natural Resources Committee. And I'm assuming that they're the group that would also be looking at the use of the historic area and the access for that area. And so in looking at that workflow, that diagram that you provided us, I was sort of not seeing that historic area process in there. And I was wondering how you'd expect to modify it to account for that, the two-phase planning process. Because I think there was a lot of public questions about that, and it would really help to answer it if it were on that, not to editorialize, but what was how were you expecting to modify that workflow to show that separate effort by the board to look at in other words, it seemed, so you showed, area plan being prepared, but is that waiting for the historic process or not? And this is what I didn't quite understand.
Right. So a little bit back in history, when we started the area plan process, we have very little information about the historic complex, where it's heading and the opportunities. So at that time, we made the decisions that we're gonna move forward with the area plan process. Keep in mind that there's a historic complex, and that the historic complex future is gonna be a separate process. And we still believe that that should be a different process, because that process will determine the long-term use of a group of structures. So a little bit different than what we're talking about here. We talk about trail, we're talking about parking for the rest of the site. However, since we move forward with this area plan process, we have some new developments related to the historic complex. And we are now starting to consider some potential rehab or reuse options for the historic complex. Again, but we still feel that it should be a separate process, and we still at this point not clear how fast that process will go. We will, if the process with the historic complex move to the point that can provide some helpful information to inform the area plan development, we will definitely share that information. But at this point, we want this group and focus on your charge is the board's charge to your group is to continue with the area plan development, and your group's focus is to help us looking into the public access aspect of the area plan. Does
Great.
that help?
Yes, thank you. It's very helpful. But so my question is, are you planning to add that workflow to the rest of this workflow so we can sort of see how you expect them to line up? For example, are there going to be 2 environmental reviews? Are there's an area plan amendment? What are you thinking right now?
The area plan should consider that there's gonna be a historic complex on site, and there's gonna be some considerations of the historic complex, either rehab or reuse. And so the area plan development should consider that, and so that it's not affecting whatever that we're planning to do in the historic complex. So I don't think whatever that we're doing in the historic complex will stop the development of the area plan. Because the area plan is actually higher level, it covers the entire area. It provides us some guidance on what we will do at the historic complex that we should be mindful of. But the development of the historic complex should be consistent with the area plan overarching goals. And this this process is for the area plan.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jane Mark, Planning Manager. And so as our Assistant General Manager, Susanna Chan, mentioned, we're trying to keep 2 parallel planning processes happening. Certainly for this area plan, we're going ahead. And with the historical complex, we are taking some time to further explore what that process may entail. Right now, it's very speculative. We don't know what the long-term uses are for that historic complex. Certainly at some future time, there may be an interface in terms of bringing the public close to that historic complex, and how would the public potentially be able to go through that historic complex. But we can't talk about that yet because we don't know what the future long-term uses are. And so Sandy, your question was like, at what point does it align? We don't know yet. And certainly when we have a better sense of what the long-term uses in that historic complex, we will understand that. And then we're just too far out to talk about CEQA review, in terms of understanding, is it going to be part of this environmental review process or is it separate? I think it's still too premature to determine that.
Okay, it's terrible to have a planning nerd on a public body, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I would just
Thanks,
say that
everybody.
I think there was a time many years ago where it was thought that they would run in parallel, but the desire is to get it open. And we have that opportunity now with public access. So that's the focus. So I'm going to go to Helen and then to Scott. And then I think we may be going to public comment.
So the separation, you just drew a line. There are trail options that come around the corner of that line that make a lot of sense in terms of regional connection, et cetera. Should we be putting those on the map as things we propose, even though it cuts into a little bit of what's been cut off with the not touching the actual buildings and structures and historical remnants there, but going around the edges and cutting into that 13 acres that was lined off. It seems our process would make much more sense in looking at the trail system to include thinking about trails that touch into that area. Is that allowable under our charge? Or do we just draw dead end trails that stop at the line?
I think it's a very good question. My understanding is that the historic complex could have any number of uses, and some of them would accommodate what you've just described just fine, but others may not. So it's impossible until that use is known for the historic complex to propose anything in that area. That's my understanding. So is there a way to make connections, or for the PORG to make recommendations to seek those connections when the historic complex uses are known? Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And you know, the thing about long-term planning is that you can't always get everything right now, but you need to leave the door open for the future connections.
Exactly.
Yeah. Scott.
Thank you. This has been a super robust discussion, largely focused on parking. I do have a number of questions related to trails. I'm reticent to begin that process because I think that's going to spur a number of other questions. So one question or recommendation is, do we limit today's meeting just to parking so that we can have public comments and then break into discussion, but reserve that in our next meeting or a subsequent meeting that we will come back and talk about trails and questions specific to trails more robustly. And perhaps if there are additional options from staff that they've thought through from trail options, I'd be very interested to see those, just like we've seen 4 options for parking here.
The goal for tonight is, in fact, to take public comment next, and then for the PORG to break into groups, discuss this work, but as Susanna and Ashley mentioned, focusing on the plan that has the, you know, some of the constraints identified, and to have at your entire charter. So your comments, now is a time to bring them up. There are going to be multiple conversations. We may not finish the conversation tonight, but the intention is certainly to begin it. And so I think we're right. We've made a great, robust beginning on these topics, but also we've dabbled in a few others. And so tonight, as you go into your discussion and deliberations, and it's a good time to bring all of those items up. So
I guess I'm a little unclear. Should I ask my trail questions now, or shall we break into public comment and have our individual group discussions?
I don't know that. Ask away.
Okay. So I guess my first question is, has there been consideration to staff on some additional trail options besides the loop that was originally presented? I see in our latest packet that there was a slight modification to that. I don't see any of the, what I'll call more fundamental options that were suggested at certain stop points along the site visit. So my first question is there any additional options that have been considered besides the 2 that we've seen in our packet that are quite similar?
Anything that you've seen to date has been described as wholly conceptual, which means really that it's a beginning idea, loop, for instance. So this is an opportunity for you to start, the PORG as a whole, to start marking those things. Yeah, please.
So we did share some ideas, alignments, but we wanted to emphasize that that's really staff's ideas, and we wanted to kind of showcase that you can make a loop and do some of those constraints. So, but we wanted to actually open up that opportunity for the pod, for you to put your thoughts down. And that's why actually tonight we purposely didn't include those, the alignment that we show as some of like ideas that we have. We wanted you to have the opportunity to put down your ideas. And tonight is the beginning of that. you can go ahead. If you feel like you have some idea you want to share with us and with the group, go ahead to do it when we break it down to small group. And if you want staff to bring back the ones that we kind of sketched it and next time, and to talk about some of the reason behind why we went in that route, we can certainly do that if you would like us to do that.
Great, thank you. I think that would be helpful. We'll, during the breakout period, provide some input and direction.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sandy.
So if it's okay to ask some of the trail questions. So this is a general question, not a specific one that we'll talk about in the breakout, but so generally, how would Midpen expect to manage the intersections of the town trails with the Midpen trails when one is open 24 hours and the other is only open a half hour before dawn and half hour after dusk? How do you deal with those intersections where they meet?
I think that's a series of questions and conversations we're about to have, but in large part, Midpen's mission and hours, just as you described, it's a place that's going to be closed at night. So that establishes part of the character of those trails. They're trails for, ecological enjoyment and recreation, essentially. The town trail is open 24/7, 365, and it needs to be. So we discussed when we were on site the likelihood of offense, and so that's probably going to be a line. Whether there's a trail on both sides of the fence remains to be seen based on your conversations. There's likely to be an Alpine Road trail on one side, and where the other trail is, we don't know yet. So I think that's the beginning of that conversation, but there's obviously a great deal more to be had. Do you have further questions on that?
Well, I was talking about where the two intersect.
Where the two intersect, is there one intersection? Is there two? Are there more? That's all part of the conversation that we're about to have.
Well,
go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to talk about Alpine Road Trail, though. That's probably a different thing, but yeah, so similar to many of our preserves, we have trailheads off of public roads or wherever it's just a sign. And it says it's closed a half hour after sunset to sunrise. But there's not going to be a physical barrier anywhere except a parking lot to keep people from driving in. And then it's just an enforcement and management issue from that standpoint. And again, the Alpine Road Trail might be a different type of arrangement because it's part of the town trail system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff.
On the subject of general questions regarding the trails, I appreciate staff responding that the fire roads or the ranch roads, as they were referred to, would be potentially open for consideration as trails. I think it'd be really helpful to get a diagram that includes an overlay of your of the proposed trail loop along with the existing fire road infrastructure. I'm not seeing that on any map, but it doesn't show the fire roads. No, the existing fire roads that are. If I'm incorrect, and there is a map already that shows the existing fire roads and the proposed trail area, that's great. I'm not aware of that, and it'd also be helpful to include on the same map clear demarcations of where trails are permissible or where trails aren't permissible. So
I think when you begin to look at the constraints and opportunities, you'll see where the potential impacts and opportunities are. As to where the fire trails are at the moment, the driveways, if I can call them that, on the site go from Alpine Road up to the staff house and from the staff house to the historic complex. We walked them when we were there last time. That's the extent of the fire trails that I'm aware of.
So I'm thinking of the trails that go up to the viewpoint knolls.
So the one that goes to the staff house devolves into a spot which is not so much as a driveway, not so much as a fire road. But it is a bit of a worn area. Whether you call that a fire trail or not remains to be seen.
It seems like a pretty clear trail that exists and that goes all the way out to Sweet Springs trails as well, I believe, at one point. Okay, a fire break.
Right, there's a disked area, that's correct.
Okay, a disc area. So my concern is, as this discs area exists right now, to a common visitor into the preserve, it looks like a trail or a road that you can walk on.
It's a disked area. We did walk on it. It was smoothed over a little bit kindly by Midpen before we got there. It's pretty rough walking, but it's obviously something that the POG could consider. It's there for fire control primarily.
Okay,
right
so
now.
it would be helpful to see the disked area on a map along with the proposed roads, proposed trails and the existing fire roads. And it sounds like this disked area needs to be maintained, and a key consideration is the aesthetic guidelines for over from the viewpoints and looking at the residences in the areas, and the desire to put a trail below the ridge that is out of the sight lines, but you have this area that looks like a trail that you can walk on. How do you practically keep, in practical terms, how do you keep people from walking on that and addressing the aesthetic issue? And it
So
kind of
noted.
feels like if that exists there and you have a trail that doesn't go there, you're defeating the purpose of not having a trail in the area.
Understood. Charlie.
Yeah. I was wondering about view sheds when we're walking. I took the video tour and I was able to move the camera around, and I was looking for Windy Hill because I wanted to be able to walk up the trail and enjoy a view of Windy Hill. And I was thinking about the good neighbor policy, and there had been a concern that the folks in Portola Valley Ranch didn't want to be able to see the trail. And I'm just wondering, how much of a constraint is the good neighbor policy? I mean, if the folks there say, we don't want to see a trail, is that, as far as the board is concerned, is that kind of the end of it? Or can we kind of push back a little bit and say, the impact of the visibility of a trail in those houses is not that big of a deal, and we kindly ask those homeowners to, to deal with it and just, I'm sorry, I was searching for a diplomatic term and it just wasn't coming out. So.
I think that the district tries hard to be a good neighbor, and also to benefit from the great outlooks from the high points that they have. I think you can see Windy Hill from a few locations. But, I think that the conversations we're about to get into, and I can feel the sort of desire to do that, is something that we need to start drawing on, marking on the plan so that we get people's input. And, we'll have to weigh the pros and cons as a group to see and balance them to see where we go with that. I don't have the answer to that question, but I think there is the spirit of being a good neighbor, but also to make the most of the properties that the district has. So I'll go to you, Karen. Thank you.
Just one last question. Have we considered having one spot for an ADA, just, ADA location separate from the main parking lot? That somebody in a wheelchair could go enjoy a vista or enjoy a short quarter-mile trail?
Yeah, we did talk about that when we were on the site, that some portion of the parking area would need to obviously be graded so that it would be accessible under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and also provide facilities, that any facilities that are offered should be accessible, bathroom, signage, and so on.
Right, but my question was more on terms of the existing parking locations don't seem to be that amenable for that person to be able to get up to enjoy the view. And
yeah, so the view is that
how do we, is there a way that we can accommodate one car going up somewhere, perhaps on this fire road? Or just, has there been consideration for that kind of
I personally have not heard conversation along those lines, but I have heard it to open the opportunities for some portion of trail to be accessible so that you can get out there in nature.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So one of the options we discussed with Midpen had parking on the saddles. So let's see here. If I go back, let's see. Does this cursor work? Can you see the cursor? Well, okay, so I can't see the cursor, but kind of where the staff drive goes in to the off of the main drive, we looked kind of in that saddle area of putting parking there and saying, okay, if we put parking here, this will allow accessibility to a higher point on the site. And that was one of the pros of having a drive come in off that road. So it's been thought about. And since you guys are looking at the design, just to let you know that that's a potential area where off that road, someone could possibly park and use that to be an accessible spot to have a view.
Shall we move to public comment? Okay, so I'd like to open the floor to public comment for any of the members of the public who are here. If you've given a card, and if you haven't, please do, they're on the table. Cards to Marie, and also if you are joining by Zoom, please raise your hand and communicate with Marie.
And actually, if you're on Zoom, if you could please go to openspace.org/public comment. You can see that link right at the top of the slide that we're sharing. We can take your input there. So we have two who are actually hopefully in the room. So we'll go ahead and start with those folks. And if you're here with us tonight, if you could please come up to the podium so we can make sure that everyone who is joining virtually can hear your thoughts. That would be lovely. So first of all, we have Karen Askey. If you could please come up.
Hi, I'm Karen, and I am speaking as a member of the Portola Valley Ad Hoc Committee for Hawthorns, and I'm also a resident. And first of all, I want to thank you guys for all your thoughtfulness and for reading our letters and discussing things. It really makes us feel heard, so we really appreciate it. And the public, unfortunately, didn't get to see our letters. I thought those were posted on site, but apparently that's done later. So I just want to reiterate that from the ad hoc committee, we really strongly feel that we need an updated traffic volume study. And thank you, Helen, for adding in the point about bikes. The things have changed considerably since 2019. As you know, with the addition of the Alpine Inn, changes to Alpine Hills, changes in traffic due to COVID, an opening of Neely Winery, and even visitors to Windy Hill. I mean, the overflow there is phenomenal in terms of what's going on Portola and Willowbrook. So it's important that we get that done before decisions are made. The other thing is that we do feel strongly that we do need to look at the historic complex in the overall plan, that even if it's not done at the same time, we need to plan for it because there are access issues, there's trail interconnectivity, there potentially could be parking. We're still going to push for that. So again, I just want to thank you guys for your thoughtfulness and consideration. And now I'm going to put my personal resident hat on. And I just want to tell you that I'm in favor of dogs on the trail, whether on leash or off. And I really would love to see a new trail loop in that beautiful purple area that has all the beautiful views. It's a shame to have that big piece of property have that 1.4 mile trail. And I think we can do more with it. And as if there is to be access from Alpine Road, my preference is for number 3 for 2 reasons. It's further away from a more congested area with Roberts near the Portola intersection. There's going to be about 40 homes developed right across the street there. You're seeing some of it going on, but with the housing element, there's more. Also, just to let you know, there's almost 150 that are going to be along Alpine Road with our new housing element up and down. And then the other thing is the Alpine Scenic Corridor is very important to residents. So option 3 does give us the ability to not see the parking lot. Now, if the trees can cover all that in option 4, that's great, but I just want to share my opinion on that. And that is it. So thank you.
Okay, and our next speaker is Pat Brennan.
Hello, hi, I am Pat Brennan. I'm with the ad hoc committee from Portola Valley. I specifically represent the Bicycle Traffic Safety Committee. And I would like to also thank you. It's very impressive how many of our concerns you've already covered this evening. So it's nice to be heard, to be considered, and we appreciate that. Of the things that we had sent in our letter, the things that I wanted to make sure to reiterate or to bring up as far as what was important to the Bicycle Traffic Safety Committee and Portola Valley was that there be no overflow parking onto any other city street in the town. The difficulty that we have with Windy Hill, we all know about, and it's very dangerous. And to have people park on the opposite side of the street on Alpine Road as an option, for instance, is encouraging pedestrian traffic to go across Alpine Road, which is just another problem. So we would really like to have all of the parking stay within the parameters of the Hawthorn property. Also, if there is overflow parking, it remain undeveloped, as undeveloped as possible, so that it's used when necessary, or if in the future it needs to be developed, but to preserve the natural habitat, to keep it as untouched as possible and only use it as overflow if necessary. One of our thoughts was that the use of the area is limited during the week, perhaps with the permits that you discussed or with the reservation system, and that during the weekends when there's not as much traffic, more car access is allowed. So we wanted just to mention the idea of we are in favor of a reservation system. We're in favor of trying to limit the number of cars that are actually going in and out of that driveway, because we can see from all of the projections that it is going to be a dangerous intersection for both cars and bicycles. So let me see. One of the things that we were thinking of was to have a entrance that would be for vehicles and another entrance that would work for bicycles and pedestrians. So they're not competing for the same little piece of property. It would be much safer for the bikes for sure, and for the pedestrians. And like what you do at Rancho San Antonio, the bikes do not go into the same entrance as they do as the cars go in. Also, as far as the bike parking, we wanted to make sure that there was safe bike parking, not just something where a person could attach a bike to a sturdy element in the ground, but something that a person could feel safe knowing that if they park their bike there, the entire bike would be there when they got back. So thank you very much.
Okay, and our last speaker, at least in person, is Charles Maroney.
Hi, I'm Charles. I just have two comments. One, when you do a little map about the size of the parking lot, you allow 50. Sorry, you allow 50 cars
And the study said 20% more people will show up from the neighborhood. 50 cars, half the people bring 2 people, the other half bring 1, ends up being about 100 people on a 1.5 mile trail, 23 yards apart. Throw in dogs, throw in horses, throw in bikes. It's a lot. So I don't know how you're going to deal with that, but that seems more like a city park to me than sort of an open space. So that's comment number 1. Comment number 2 is I do look over that purple area. And I know people are saying, let's put trails there. I do think it's a significant view. It's a significant view. Overall, there are spots on those trails that the designer has already put on that allow you to have vistas for looking at Windy Hill and other of the parts of the mountain. So I and my neighbors would not particularly like to have trails zigzagging across that purple area. So especially with people 20 yards apart. Everybody's seen the growth of all of these open space areas. You go up to Yosemite and you want to climb Half Dome, you have to have a reservation, and it's basically an antline. It would be a shame if that's what all our trails end up around here. Maybe that is the future with our population increases, but it certainly would be nice to have some open space that gives people solitude, gives them a nice trail, gives them nice views. And I don't know how you handle that, whether you have to limit horses, whether you have to limit bikes, whether you have to limit dogs, whether you have to have a reservation system. I don't know, but it does seem like there's going to be a strong demand for a little tiny piece of property. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to comments from the virtual room. We have Greg Franklin first, followed by Ron Eastman. So Greg, if you want to go ahead and take yourself off mute, we're ready for you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm a 35-year resident of Portola Valley. I've walked or jogged the Alpine Trail virtually every day for most of those 35 years. I knew Fred Woods personally. He's the resident and donor of the Hawthorn estate. And I spoke to him many times over the years, including about his intentions to turn the Hawthorns over to open space after he was gone. So I have a very personal connection with and in Hawthorns, and I've actually participated in 2 of your public tours. So let me just focus on the principal subject so far as discussed tonight, which is parking and access. And first of all, I thought that many of the speakers, Karen and Pat, sort of covered part of my commentary, but I also want to thank Sandy and Jeff because they touched on a very important, I think, omitted dimension for your consideration when you develop and finalize your access and parking plan. As a resident, I think, you know, of Portola Valley, we're very familiar with and have direct experience with the overflow parking problem on the shoulders of Portola Road, particularly on weekends, because the parking lot there is just inadequate to cope with the traffic. And with respect to the access that you're contemplating for the Hawthorns across from Roberts, I think it's reasonable to assume that that area is most likely to have the highest density of homes, commercial activity and traffic in the whole of Portola Valley as a result of the implementation of the housing element, which was passed by Portola Valley Council earlier this year. We've got a quadrupling of our housing element, and 2/3 of it, as Karen pointed out, will be along Alpine Road, which is one of our only 2 evacuation routes out of town. That lot immediately opposite your gate, the empty lot between the Willow Commons project and Roberts by itself, after rezoning, it would be possible for a developer to put 42 to 43 housing units just on that site. And within that 3-site block down to Nathorst, a total of, it's possible if the housing element is implemented, there'll be 65 homes or housing units. So I think you have to think about what the future is going to look like for that part of town and incorporate that into your parking and access plan. I think I'm out of time, so I'll
Next, we have Ron Eastman, followed by Christy Corley. So Ron, if you want to go ahead and take yourself off mute.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, I'm actually speaking for Ronald Eastman. I'm Michael Miller, and I've heard a lot of comment about safety, and that's really important to me. I'm a biker in the area. I appreciate hearing a lot of the bicycle comments earlier, but I know that area really well. When you're on that side of Alpine Road coming downhill, you're going really fast. And I'm very concerned about when you're further down that eastern entrance, bikers have a lot of momentum then. And I see that as being really problematic with cars making rights and lefts in front of them. So even though it's more congested up across from Roberts, and I hear those arguments too, at least traffic, everything is moving more slowly then. And I think people can pay attention to where the bikers are and what's going on, and they're not moving. No one's moving that fast up there. It's it's already congested, and I heard Greg there. It's going to get more congested, but I still think that's the better option versus when you're going very fast downhill, because momentum and bikers and cars just don't work out very well. So that was my comment.
All right, my comment is it is the Alpine Scenic Corridor, which is written into our general plan. And the intent of the Alpine Scenic Corridor was that we don't see things like parking lots and cars, although it'd be convenient to check on the security of those parking lots if you could see them from the road. There is a 75-foot setback. That the idea is that the road should look like a rural country road, and putting a big parking lot right along the road, I think that would be contrary to the intent of our general plan. All right, thank you.
Okay, and finally we have Christy Corley. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you everyone for your hard work on this wonderful site. I was surprised to hear that the number 4 parking lot would possibly go into the 75-foot setback, and that is a fuzzy area for our town. It's really not. Many of us have had to build with a setback of 75 feet and fencing accordingly. So it is real important to our town not to make concessions on that 75-foot setback. I'm also concerned about the cumulative effects of the housing that needs to be taken into consideration. So our housing element will probably take us up to 305 units at least, and it doesn't really matter if it's on Alpine Road or Patola Road. All the roads of the corridors will be used by those 305 new units, and who knows, maybe we'll go above that. I did notice you mentioned a slight modification in the trail plan. I'm not sure the public is aware of where that change occurred, so if you could make that known to us, we'd appreciate that as well. The planning was mainly based on mixed traffic and slope, but I feel strongly, and thank Helen for bringing this up, and I was thinking the same thing, that bike analysis on Alpine Road needs to be more robust. this is, it's used so often, big groups, fast. I've seen 3 to 4 accidents at Los Trancos and Alpine, and you're talking about a historical site in addition to this site, so that quite a bit more from your end as well. And then you did say that it would parking along Alpine Road has less impact into the site, but for us, it's more impact on the residents visually on our scenic corridor. So I wanted to point that out. I think we have to look at each other's needs here and work together. I'm really disappointed if the town is not getting the traffic numbers you need, because we have license plate and we can get actual traffic numbers. And if we need a more thorough traffic report with what is coming in the future, then I think the town should undertake that and work with you to get better traffic reports.
And that concludes all of our public comments.
Great. Thank you, Marie. I've got 2 procedural things I just want to ask the PORG. We've been going at this for several hours. It's 8:30. We are running a little bit behind. So the first question is to think about, do we want a 5-minute break to leg stretch? And the other is to get through our agenda, we're likely to run longer than the specified 9 o'clock, and wondering how people feel about that to allow for the conversation. Maybe I can see a show of hands to say, is it okay to run past the 9 o'clock? It's a really good question. And I don't know that any of us know the answer. I would say we're about an hour behind right now. So that's a significant amount of past, but it might be finite. And we can, I will look to you for guidance. So if you want to say, let's talk for an hour and see what we can do in an hour, let's do that. But I think everyone's maybe feeling like ready for a little bit of a leg stretch. Can we do it briefly, like a 5-minute break? Does that sound good? I'm seeing 8:33, so let's call it 8:38. Thank you. And really work to get some feedback. Our thinking tonight was, as you can see that some boards behind you, is we're going to break into 2 groups. I put it to you how long we want to talk. The thinking is that it will be kind of pithy. You have an opportunity to talk with the small number of people you're with, half the number of the overall, and to look at the plans, take Post-its, and I think we have Post-its that we can give you, write things on, draw things on. I would suggest you do it on the site analysis plan, but whatever you like, what we want is to get comments out on any topic that's within your purview. And then after a period of time, should we say 15 minutes? Does that seem good? Maybe I'll check in at 10 or 12 and we'll see how we're doing. Then we'll come back to our seats, and then one person from each group can kind of report back. I think it's going to be a more efficient way to sort of get the conversation off to a good start. And then we'll go from there. And what I'd like to do is get a sense of priorities tonight. If there are things, and we might even do, and again, I put it to you, but we might do a lightning round of things after the report back to see what's, a must have and a can't have in people's minds, so that we can sort of frame the conversation and work out where we need to focus our energy. So that's my thinking, or our thinking. And the Post-its I know are coming. So we thought we'd split the group. There's 5 in one. Oh, great. Thank you, Jeff. 5 in one group and 6 in the other. Sarah, I'm going to have you in this group, but you're a non-voting member. So there's going to be 6 plus you in this group, and we'll have the 5 in the other group. And there's a piece of blue tape between Karen and Sandy on the dais there. That's the split. So Sandy and everyone that way go to the group of drawings that are on that half of the room, and Karen and everyone on this side, please go to this half. And just before you split, there's sort of two ways I think we could do this. One is that the group could really just talk amongst yourselves. Don't be bashful, get your thoughts out. And the other is that, of course, you can do that as talk amongst yourselves, but if you'd like to draw on any of the brain trust that is in the room, what's policy for Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District? Do you have traffic questions? Are there parking and access questions? Anything at all. So you can draw on us, but I invite you to start, and we'll look at, I'll check in with you in about 12 minutes time. Thank you.
Yeah. But feedback very well. See that one. Yeah, I mean, I think it's depending on the so I think that's that manage entry access as well. Standard. Do like We're still, right. I mean, I think that there are some problems.
Like because the combination of, I do think it's better than I like the green line road because I think this last. It's a smaller overall footprint. For the parking area and it's important.
Sorry, I got it from home.
Right near University. It's actually I'm so glad you're here. Yes. I was also viewed it as this discussion is about the law, not about the actual numbers. So you could easily go down to as well as go up to 50. I think if you did overflow up, then which right in this area, thank you. Readily
Yes.
we maybe move on to this. I have some my things. So, I would, first of all, I think it's good one trail is a great start, but I would like to see more trails. I would consider a trail the civil drive. Not already guys used as a drive. Also works. First side is this one. Three line there. Like a nice option. So the I would also consider the trails off the bridge. I'll stick my there. So we will look into the trail through the and I would want to make sure that all of the main trail any goes to the north. our site visit, the intent was to be, down the side of it.
But I don't, we're talking about here and it's gonna be or we're seeing I want to know, like, I just, people.
But that was not intended to be almost random.
You're right, but I actually think, but I think that and I don't feel like when I stood and looked out, I don't feel like I was close to anybody's yard. Like, yeah, if someone, yeah. Yeah, and so, I mean, if that was actually one of the ones where I think it would be really nice to put like a bench. And, you know, just. You set up your visibility and your phone to the point. And. The other one I want to throw in there, a bunch of people that have comments about dogs. And while I agree
I'd have your attention for a moment. So I wonder if you just spend 60 seconds wrapping up and identifying who one or two people are going to present your ideas. And then we'll take our seats. Thanks. Are we ready? So I wonder if you'd be thinking about who is going to be your spokesperson. And I just want to say that the Post-its are fantastic. We are going to photograph them tonight, so it's a record. I know Post-its seem kind of temporary, but we will capture them on, well, not film, but the digital equivalent. So this group nearest me, who are your spokespeople?
I am.
Rachel, great. Rachel, tell us what you and your group spoke about, and if you can help us understand the priorities, the sort of the polar ends, the yes really want to have, and the oh really have a hard time with. Those two categories are helpful as well.
Yes. So we touched on, I think, a lot of the topics that were covered via public comments. Pass me my iPad back so let's reference that. So in terms of parking, we are strongly in favor of the entrance that is at Hawthorn Road for many of the safety reasons that we've kind of all heard about there, but we were talking about the possibility of using this parking structure that is shown in design 3 in order to address some of the concerns that were presented, both pros and cons, and as well as it was the Trails Committee that we were looking at their recommendations and where they wanted to see some of the impacts as well. So trying to acknowledge what the committee was saying. There were a whole series of comments as well that came from different people regarding dogs and usage. And so we believe that a dog park is not an appropriate use within the Mid-Penn Charter, but we did agree that dogs on leash are something that we should continue to discuss and look at. And then the Trails and Parks committees sent in some recommendations there that were in the batch 5 email, which came out most recently. And there were some connectors there. In particular, there was a connector to the Sweet Springs Trail. And then there's also kind of connections in with the Alpine Trail. And so we liked a lot of those connectors and what was demonstrated there. And so one of the things we were talking about at the end was the idea of the Alpine Trail as its own kind of piece outside the park, and then having connectors that connect into the loop trail so that when the park is open and accessible, it's really easy to jump over and have a more immersive experience within nature. And then adding potentially another connector as well. If you look at the drawing that batch email included, they had some sketched pieces there. You could include one on the other side as well, so you could hop back off of the loop trail as well easily. And so that includes the connectivity within the city there. We did want to acknowledge as well that on that same email, there was a sketched that trail that goes straight through the closed area. And so we recognize that that is not something that's within our purview at this time, but did want to recognize that it was also something that the Trails Committee did look at when they sent their recommendations over. Did anybody want to chime in with anything I might have missed?
Just one small thing with the option with the parking, whatever one that we could put in the ADA spot.
That's right.
And I spoke to, I don't remember your name, but that was possible that we could go, Paul, sorry. Oh, that we could have a little spur so there would be an ADA spot that they could go somehow enjoy a view and park up there.
And then one last thing that we were looking at in terms of trails as well, we were talking about that knoll at the top where on the trail it was, I believe, 5-ish when we were. Yeah, and we were talking about how incorporating some of those vistas in when we saw the property did not seem like it was intrusive within the sight lines of the properties. And we were concerned that if we didn't do something more deliberately as part of our design, that people would do bushwhacking in order to do the view. And so that seemed like somewhere in that area would be a good way to do some deliberate design of trails, maybe a bench to consider something in that spot, like in a nice sunny spot so that people aren't inclined to stay too long. But something in that area to include and facilitate rather than having people bushwhack and destroy more of the vegetation unintentionally as they go to look at the vistas. So be deliberate about how we include those viewpoints. And then trails, more trails.
Yeah, maybe just adding some additional on trails, just more trails in general. In addition to the loop, having maybe some spurs that go off at the loop trail or adding some additional loops, perhaps some of them down respectfully into the view shed area. Others to consider might be along the historic driveway or perhaps through the olive grove. But again, trails, more trails, I think was the underlying overriding message.
That's super. You've covered a lot of ground. I wonder if I could just ask a point of clarity. I just noticed that your boards are 1, 2, 4, and 3, and you said option 3 and you married 2, but I just want to make sure we've got it straight.
The numbers we used matched what was given to us on the slides and in the documents
On the
as
boards.
opposed to the order that is on
Okay, great.
display.
Okay, so the driveway entry from number 1 and the parking layout from number 3.
Correct.
Okay, good. Just so I've got that straight. Thank you. That was wonderful. I'm sure that will also promote further conversation, but I'd like to hear from the other group. Who's your spokesperson?
I'll start. First of all, it's amazing how similar our list is. So we wanted also parking lot 3, although some consideration possibly parking lot 4, a little bit of back and forth on that. But because of the bicycle safety issue, road 2, which is the one that doesn't quite go up. It's the Hawthorns entrance, but it's the road that curves around rather than the one that goes up and down again. Oh, that's 1? So that's road 1. Okay.
Road 1.
So we agree on road 1. Dogs on leash, no dog park. We talked about other uses also. You didn't mention equestrian use and you didn't mention bike use. We all thought equestrian use on the trails was appropriate. Bike use, that's some issue, and then the question of whether there can be some separated trails that are more suitable. The request for bike use for kids makes you think about differently about what kind of bike trail you want than if you're thinking about the usual off-road bike riders. So thinking about how we can accommodate the need for kids to be able to ride bikes in the woods. It seemed to be one. We didn't mention the ADA parking, but I certainly think that's a good idea. We also thought of the trail connections as suggested by the Town Trails Committee, very similar. Taking the trail on the knoll off so it actually goes to the viewpoints rather than tucked behind the knoll, we agreed. And the possibility of further trails also was something we talked about. So essentially the same list, except we did talk about the horse use and without needing equestrian parking, having equestrian options and an equestrian hitching post by the toilet.
I think the only other thing that Helen didn't cover is we felt like we didn't know what the options for the Alpine Road realignment were because it hadn't really been studied and
Alpine
you know,
Trail.
sorry, Alpine Trail realignment. We're kind of generally supportive of the idea, but we want to know more about where it would or could or would go and then also looking at could there be anything done to the existing alignment to retrofit it to make it safer? So, you know, that we would be able to weigh both options and to give a good solid recommendation.
Rachel. I just wanted to chime in with one more piece from our conversation because it's an interesting idea that we had thrown around as we did touch slightly on equestrian and bicycle. And one thought that we threw around was to have the intent of having the loop trail be specifically pedestrian use and then open other trails open to more multimodal pieces. So that way emphasizing the connectivity. And so given that it was an interesting thought that I don't think any of us had thought of before tonight, I wanted to make sure that that made it out to the whole group to think on and consider.
That's a lot of ground.
One other item that our group talked about a bit was replacing the Alpine Road chain link fencing to something more wildlife friendly and more kind of open space compatible. We didn't really talk about the rest of the perimeter fencing, but yeah, definitely the Alpine Road.
The cyclone fencing should go and be replaced by a different kind of fencing when a fence is built, more like the kinds of fencing that you have at other preserves.
I believe that is the plan, yeah. But the wildlife piece of it too, because there's wildlife safety and corridors and so on. Well, you covered a lot of ground. I don't know if I dare try and summarize, but you're right. There was a lot of commonality, which I think is incredibly helpful. Let's look at users and uses for a moment. Dogs on leash, no dog park seem to be a universal opinion. And pedestrians, bicycles, and horses to use trails, but no equestrian parking. Is that what I'm understanding? So can we talk a little? Yeah, please, Vivian.
I was just going to say, we sort of we ran out of time, but we were trying to figure out how it's possible to have all of those constituencies on a single track trail, which is one of the reasons we were curious about how much of the trail system would be single track, because those things probably don't work that well if all four types of uses are going to be trying to share a single track. And that was, I think, where we were talking about maybe just having the loop be pedestrian only, or maybe pedestrian dogs. I don't think we actually got to that level of detail.
Just starting down that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, bikes and horses, especially if you've got dogs, it's complicated, I think.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, yeah, Jeff, please.
With respect to bicycle usage, we were prioritizing opportunities for children, for youth to be riding their bike and in some sort of a loop, prioritizing connectivity through regional trails, Not specifically not prioritizing recreational use. It's a small preserve. It doesn't seem to lend itself so specifically for biking. So within the constraints, if there are wider roads that are available for bikes to have the proper connectivity, then limit their usage on smaller trails, limiting them to pedestrians and equestrian.
That's great. And all of those comments we heard, many of them we heard at the site visit too, I think. Let's talk a little bit about connectivity. Because I think everyone wants this to connect to the broader context. And when we saw the town trail, and Ashley, I might ask you to bring up that slide, but the one that shows the trail connections in the immediate vicinity, did you talk about the types of uses and users on trails, or perhaps we did talk a little bit in your comments just then about where the points of connection might be? Let's flesh that out a little bit. Yeah, that's good. So there's a trail map up on the screen right now. The Hawthorn space is the white triangle, generally on the lower right. So I know that there are some nearby trails which don't allow dogs. Some of them don't allow bikes. The other one's better. Great. Yeah, I think you're right. Better. Yes. So I'm just wondering whether there's thoughts and opinions on that. Yeah. Charlie.
Well, I don't think we were just getting to trails right at the end of our conversation, but I think there was a lot of discussion about it's being good for the kids. And I'm thinking specifically about kids coming down the hill from Corte Madera School. If they could come down the hill and be on the Alpine Trail if they're going to the Alpine Club, but if they could also right at that point where they're first adjacent to Hawthorns land, if they could get up onto the loop at that point, I think it'd be kind of an enticement to get them into a little loop and enjoy nature a little bit.
Good. Yeah, please, Scott.
Again, I think we really like the proposals from a connectivity standpoint for that the town Trails Commission had proposed. And, I think we've got to respect the uses that we're connecting to in terms of, people who can exit off of them at that point. But I like the idea of, doing something that kids would be able to enjoy, that would introduce them. We did not have a lot of substantive discussions about bikes and equestrians. We just started on that, but ran out of time. But I think it's a topic that certainly warrants additional discussion.
More conversation. Yeah, I agree. I think the kids thing seems like a good scale fit. We'll go to Charlie first and then Karen.
Just real briefly, I mountain bike a lot. And for me, I look at this really small area. I'm going to go there 2 or 3 times. It's like, okay, I get it, and I'm going to be drawn to much more bigger, more expansive areas. And that's going back to the kids. I think it's good for kids, but adults, I don't think you really need to manage this too much because I think they're going to kind of veer away from there just because it's.
Come look and then go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not got the attraction for the adult experience because you need a bigger piece of ground. You're going to cover more ground. Yeah, that's interesting. Karen and then Bryna.
I think we're all on the right track here, but I think until we have a little bit more detail, especially on the connectivity and where they could be. And I wanted to point out that I think it's important to have a connection right at the stop sign at Portola and Alpine to
Yes.
encourage just casual people in town that are walking on the trails to use that. Because I think people crossing Alpine, and I have crossed Alpine, jaywalked, yes, I'm confessing. The many years I've lived there, it's not easy. And I would just really want to make sure that we had a connection right there. So
It's
for
the safest
safety.
place. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think to have too long a conversation on this is really too hard until
It's too abstract.
it's too abstract.
Yeah, I think we have fleshed out a lot of the issues
Yeah.
though. And I think we've also put a few to bed, which is actually just as helpful. But while we're still going, Bryna.
Yeah,
it's a little bit related to what she just said, where if, depending on the connectivity and the parking, again, we had mentioned at an earlier meeting, our concerns about the parking being used as a staging area. So I agree, adults wouldn't want to bike within Hawthorns, but depending on where it's connecting to, it could then become very attractive as a place to park because it is in such a central area. And it's just something that we need to think about.
Please, Sandy.
I just wanted to echo Karen's thought about connecting to Portola Road. That's where the 2 bus stops are, is over there. And if we're gonna stand any chance of, modal shift to something not a car, you gotta connect well to the buses. And it is going to be difficult because that is a fairly steep slope right there, but I think we can figure that out as part of potentially the Alpine Trail realignment.
Well, that's been robust and a very efficient way to do it. Thank you. Jeff, please.
We did just get started talking a little bit about different access points to the Alpine, or into the Hawthorne site along Alpine Road, near the upper end and the lower end, and it's something that we need to develop further. But it'd be good to understand what the constraints are that the staff recognizes already to help us pick what these access points would be. There's obviously a concern about safety in crossing Alpine Road. It'd be good to understand from the city of Portola Valley or whoever has jurisdiction on Alpine Road, the possibility of adding a hawk light, a high intensity activated crosswalk. One of the crosswalks, you push a button to cross on demand.
Yeah.
That could be a potential mitigating factor for safety.
So the priority of safety, that's great. Well, that's been really helpful. Given the hour, I'm inclined to sort of leave it there. We've gathered a lot of thoughts and I think the bookends have been created. So I congratulate you. I think that's a real accomplishment. I have a question for the POG, and I'm just looking at these boards. The preference for entry on board 1, but parking on board 3. I'm just wondering whether there was any conversation about the length of driveway and the impact on the quietude of the interior of Hawthorns, and how you feel about that. Because I remember at the site visit at the last meeting, we stood where we started, where we returned back to, and it was like, this really is a magical place. And so it would be a drive-through, if I'm understanding correctly, rather than a parking spot. Is that how you're seeing it?
I think
We'll
that-
start with Vivian, we'll go to Sandy and then to Helen.
We're for that was because of what the Trails Committee had suggested. And Sarah mentioned that the Trails Committee did not want to see parking next to either of the meadows. And this allows parking not to be next to the meadows. It sort of puts it in the corner there. And if at a later point, more overflow parking is needed, you've already got the road there and you could just widen it, go back to the other parking lot. So it sort of supported 2 things, even though it does make for a much longer drive in.
Mm-hmm. Sandy, I think you were next.
Well, I think the truth is that we ran out of time to really cover that. It was kind of, what about it? It's sort of long. And then we moved on to the next thing because we knew we were going to have to cover a lot of territory. So I hope we can have a good discussion about that later. Long driveways can be fairly unpleasant,
Impactful.
and they reduce the natural resource habitat. And I don't know, I could give you my opinion, but the group didn't have time to talk about it.
Okay. And Helen.
Yeah, the trade-off is really a short driveway with a bad entrance or a longer driveway with what we feel is a safer entrance.
Okay.
And
Understood.
that was the issue.
All right.
I
Scott
would just
and
echo
John.
that's exactly what we thought as well.
Okay.
The
Okay.
much safer entrance up on Hawthorns.
I'm really I'd love to see the entrance down the hill a little bit, but I too am not comfortable with the bicycles streaming by at high speed. And I'm wondering, are there any tricks up the traffic designer asleep that could slow the bicycle traffic there and make that lower entrance slower. Maybe I'm trying to have it both ways, but I'm curious.
I think there's a certain amount of risk, and it would be very unappealing for people on bike to be slowed down. I think there'd be a certain level of resistance, to be honest, and that people would try to figure a way around it. As a cyclist myself, I just know that when I'm going fast, the thing I hate the most is to have to slow down. And I mean, there are ways to slow people down on bike. For a roadway as steep and as straight as Alpine Road, those measures would be quite intrusive. It would degrade the quality of the road.
What are those measures? I mean,
I'm going to give you ideas, but I don't think they're good ideas. Like things that could be done, like you could introduce chicanes, but that's not really that great because you want to keep a shoulder straight, and chicaning things to slow people down can also cause people to veer into unexpected locations, and that's not good. You can do rumble strips or raised crossings or any sort of undulations. Also not very appealing for people because someone not paying attention could be bumped off their bike and lose control. So if it was a more populated, busy area compared to Alpine Road, I would be perhaps more open to it. If it was flatter, to be honest, I would be more open to it. But from what we know with Alpine and its gradient, those kinds of measures I don't think are appropriate.
So we'll go to Karen, and then I'm going to wonder if Tyler and Carrie, perhaps Willie, have things to add too, but we'll go to Karen first.
I just think that the bicycle community would be really mad at us if we did those kind of measures. I am too, but I just think that would be really problematic.
Tyler, do you have anything you might want to add?
We were discussing just kind of ecological impacts and sensitive species. Something that we were talking about is just wanting to maintain some of the biodiversity that is, especially in the meadows, and not wanting to impact that with the development of the parking area. Particularly the third option that we talked about goes through a very robust population of native grasses. And then also just keeping in mind the potential introduction of invasive species that can come in with dogs in different areas. So that's why we were saying dogs on leash, especially in these lower areas like the olive orchard and some of the grasslands closer to Alpine Road that are already a little more impacted.
Great, thank you. Carrie, do you have anything you want to add?
Entrance number 1 by Roberts, the Hawthorns entrance, I think is safer for someone on a horse because of the sunlight issue that was mentioned. It's really hard on a driver to see something come out of a shadow right into traffic. And the equestrian parking, if it was available, I'm sure people would use it, but because on horseback, the parking available in front of Springdown Farms is not that far away. So
Great observations. And Willie, do you have anything you'd like to add? Very good. I'm inclined to hold it there unless anyone else has got a comment. I know it's been a long night, and I want to congratulate you. I think that was an incredibly, actually speedy, even though I know it's late, a speedy way to get a long way down the road. There's obviously more conversation to be had. And on that topic, we are scheduled to meet next time on December the 16th, is it? 18th. And it was going to be in the field, but I feel a little bit like this conversation is still going. I put it to you though, would you rather meet in the field and check these ideas that we've got this far with? Or would you rather come back here and try and get them further along, maybe with a bit more input? The 16th, thank you. December 16th. Bryna.
I think if we meet in the field, aren't we going to have like this giant meeting again that will make it rather
It's got to be a
difficult for
public
us
meeting.
to?
Yep.
I mean, it's not that I don't want to hear from members of the public, but it'll make it hard for us to have the level of interaction that allowed us to make so much progress so quickly.
The meeting in the field will be, of course, this is a public meeting. That will also be a public meeting. It will be more about looking and testing than it will be about conversation, I think. Here, I think it's much more of, getting the conversation. Karen.
Is it possible? I thought this was fabulous. I thought at least the team I was on and the conversations was really good. So I would prefer to continue this, but I was wondering if there was an option for those who are not as familiar with the site to perhaps have Midpen allow them, an appointment or a couple of other opportunities to go see some of these spots if they feel like they need to before the meeting. Not an official POG meeting, but okay, maybe Tyler might, well, you've been there a lot, but I'm just picking on you, I'm sorry. Somebody may want to see, some of these connection points or something like that and do that separately other than the formal meeting.
We can certainly host a couple site visits, but we'd have to have it under quorum so that it's not a public meeting. And we could throw out a few dates and see which resonate with who, and then we can host you all out there in varied times.
Thank you, Tina. That sounds great. So we were going to, as I said, we were going to be in the field next time, and then we pegged a date in January the 18th, I think, that we were going to do as a supplementary, the 20th. Oh my goodness. We're going to do as a supplementary meeting. I think if we meet next time here in December on the 16th and continue this conversation and really push it along, we can decide then and there if we want to do the next one in January in the field. Does that sound good? Yep. Okay. So the evening's not quite over. I'm wondering if we're got in us tonight the selection of 2 co-chairs. So the deal with the co-chairs, and I'm not sure if we have any slides for that, do we? Is that ideally, in a perfect world, we would have a co-chair who is a resident of the town of Portola Valley, and we would have a co-chair from the nearby region. And we also, the co-chairs would help facilitate these conversations, be more part of it, and also ultimately bring the recommendations to the PNR and also to the board. So to bring the collective effort of the POG forward through the process. So I'm wondering if there's anyone who's particularly interested, just a show of hands. I know that there's a lot of capability here, in fact, a tremendous amount. And I'm hoping that you've given it some thought because it was on the agenda that we were going to be selecting co-chairs. Don't be bashful.
Can I nominate? Because we had a little bit of a discussion.
Oh yeah, please.
So there were 2 people in ARPA. So we thought Helen as a member of the town would be wonderful. And Sandy would also be wonderful. So I wanted to throw their names into the mix.
I'm sorry, that was nominating Sandy and Helen. Okay, thank you. So Sandy and Helen, do you accept the nomination? Okay, so are there others who might be interested? And if you are sitting near someone that you know that they're kind of interested and they're a little bit bashful, you can put it forward too. They can say no if they want. We're all friends here. So Helen?
Since Karen is the other person from Portola Valley, I think the committee should vote between us, and I nominate Karen.
And I was so we're looking at Rachel. I'm seeing all fingers pointing toward Rachel. Are you interested in being nominated? So before we get to sort of finishing that, is anyone feeling a little bit left out and are really vigorous and interested in being a co-chair? I mean, I think we've all seen each other enough, and I know Tyler, you've just joined us, but you feel like family now. So, you know, if there's any interest, please, now is your moment to squeak. Well, that's pretty good. I'm thinking we've got Helen and Karen, who are both from the town of Portola Valley, and we have Rachel and Sandy representing the region. So what I'm going to do here is everyone is going to get a chance to vote on the town of Portola Valley. So it's out of 2, but actually it's also out of 2 for the region as well, because we've got 2 nominees. So you're each going to get 2 votes, 1 for each of those categories. But before we get there, I wonder if I can ask the 4 people whose names have been listed, if you can think for a moment about what it is that you feel that you bring to the leadership, being a co-chair, and you know how you listen, how you engage with the public, and also with your fellow PORG members. So you're going to have a minute to describe that. But before we do that, you've got a moment to think. Can we get some Post-its or something that people can use to vote on? And I'm going to ask you to write names down, and we'll drop them in a hat. Terrific. So the green Post-its are going to be. So this is a 1 voting, Helen and Karen, and Sandy or Rachel is the other. So this is region, and that's town. Okay, does that not work? What have I missed? Okay. So everyone just pass this along. It's green. Take 1, and then if you've got another batch of another color. Great, pink. Thank you, Bryna. So the pink will be for the town, and the green will be for the region. And you shouldn't write on it yet because, yeah, I gave them around already. And if we're short, is there enough? Don't make your decision just yet, because you're going to hear 4 people speak about themselves each for 1 minute. And that could swing it, right? I appreciate the people accepting the nominations. It's marvelous. It's great. Okay, so in no particular order, Sandy, would you like to start, please?
Let's see. So what makes me particularly qualified to be the chair? First off, I want to say I don't want to knock anybody over if they're really psyched to do this, but I would be happy to be the co-chair. I'm on the Mountain View Park and Rec Commission. I'm currently the vice chair of that, and I've been doing that for about 2 years. And I served on the previous POG for La Honda Creek with Willie. So I've been doing these sorts of things for a while. I was also on the design review board when I lived in Orinda for 4 years. And to top that off, I was on the Midpen staff for about 13 years, and I know a lot of the players. I was part of the real property department staff when the property was acquired, and so I did a lot of the due diligence, walking around trying to find all the old cars and skeletons in the closet. And I really care about public input and listening to what people have to say, and I would work hard to help get the materials that we would need to make a good decision in front of the group by working with the staff.
Terrific.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
considering me.
So since that is the regional representative, we'll turn to Rachel, the other potential regional representative.
So I've spent the last couple meetings just mostly listening and being a little quieter, which for those people who know me, that's not me. I'm very vocal. I'm very forward about being able to share my opinion, but I also think it's important to hear everyone else's. And so I try to listen, I try to recap, I try to give people a chance to kind of correct the understanding and do it so that I can bring forward the most accurate point of view. I also have the opportunity as someone newer to all of this, bringing a new and fresh voice and fresh perspective in a very different way, while still having leadership opportunities where I was working with speaking out, and I've served as committee chairs in some other education-based organizations. So newer to it, but still listening, still recapping, and still bringing the voices forward. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. So Karen.
I'm happy to serve. I won't, I'd also be happy to have, actually any of the other three nominees here. What I think I bring to the table is I've been just really involved in our town government, for the last several years, and I just find it interesting. I don't know why. So I've been to like 12 of these different town meetings. So I've listened to the trails and paths and the bicycle folks. And so I'm just really a listener and I love collaborating. And I actually really enjoyed today. I thought that was, I thought that was actually fun. So that's me. So
Thank you. Helen.
Oh, sorry. I tried to, but it didn't go on. I've chaired lots of things, but that's not the reason why I should be doing this here. I think it's a matter of being able to summarize what everybody has put together, because the job of passing on the message of this group to the next group seems to be the major role of the chair. And I think I'm pretty good at synthesizing information and putting it together in a way that it makes sense to people who haven't been through the whole discussion.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Now there's going to be a little elevator music while you all write on your Post-its and we'll come around and collect them. So the pink is the town. The pink is the town. The green is the region. Karen and Helen are the town, and Rachel and Sandy are the region. There's an even number. Well, we'll see. We'll find out.
Maybe we don't need one.
Maybe not.
Really equitable about this.
Says you can't vote.
Point toss.
Point toss, yeah. Flip a coin, I got an
Drop your phone. One side up and the other side down.
I'll drop my work phone for that.
Well, I want to second what I just heard. I thought that was really fun too. And I think you did an absolutely smashing job. So thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure, actually. We have just a little bit more to do while the votes are counted. There it is, meeting 4, December 16th. We've decided to have it here. So we will change that. And December 16th. Are we going to do it here?
Yeah, the reason we suggest keeping it on this day is that the meeting schedule has been out for a while, and we know that a lot of people have been putting the putting these dates in their calendar, and we don't really want to disrupt their ability to attend. No, it's fine.
So the count is happening right now. The homework for next time will come, no doubt, as a packet. And I think also to think about what we've heard tonight, because we've heard a tremendous amount. We are going to photograph these tonight, so they're going to be recorded, and that will inform the meeting summary. So yes, Vivian.
Yeah, we'll try to throw out some dates that work. We didn't check whether weekends or weekdays are better for you, but I guess we should ask. Would you like one of each? And we'll try to do our best to. If we have too many on one day, we'll try to accommodate a second day or a third day. We did want to ask for a clarification. So it sounds like there's a lot of information that we are going to gather between now and December. We'll do our best to get what we can. And then the question we had with regarding the trails, it does sound like there are a lot of different ideas that were discussed. We'll have to take a look at your notes. Would you like our staff to take a look at how to incorporate your comments and graphically display them as new trails on a map? Okay. All right. And your thoughts about the red line that's showing right now, do you want us to leave that as is so you can react to that when all the other concepts go put in? Do you want us to change anything about the one that you've seen on that site tour? We can adapt it. You can wait to adapt it after you've seen other things. It's up to you. We just want to kind of get a clarification. If there's anything you want to change, let us know. Otherwise, we'll leave it as is and you can change it later.
We have a map from our group that has some deviations on that, but mostly it follows that loop.
Okay.
To get to the knolls we would like to look at spurs or trails that go to the knoll tops so you can.
Oh, that's fine. I was just wondering about the base, the red line, and whether you want that, anything about that at the moment, or do you want us to add to it? We can make them available, yeah.
Is it possible to start with the purple that was in this packet, which I think is a little bit more detailed than the red one is?
Yes, that's fine. We can start with the purple one in the packet. That one is sort of a, the red one was sort of a concept and the purple one was to show what happens to a concept when you try to ground truth it and try to get the grading right. So that's when you start seeing switchbacks.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I would like to start with the purple then,
Sure.
because I think it does have some of the topographical.
Sure, we can do that.
Plus
Thank you.
suggestions.
Right. So that's fine. All the suggestions that we see here and in the committee, we'll try to incorporate and develop some options for you to react to and at your next meeting so that it's sort of graphically representative. I know it's a little bit hard to. That's the alarm of the building. We'll take care of it.
Excuse me, as I think
Okay,
as I think as I requested already, is it possible to include the fire roads and the fire break disc lines on the same map, please?
We'll show them as another graphic so you
Yeah,
can then
different
react to it
color,
and
of
you can
course.
see how they relate.
Yep, thanks.
That does not sound like a good alarm.
So if we can just put that aside and hope that they can deal with it. We have a little bit of a situation with our co-chairs because one of our members is not here tonight and we have a tie. So I put it to, it just goes to show that your fellow board members love you. That's great. It seems like there's a few ways we could come at this. We could try again and vote again, or we could flip a coin. And the tie is between Sandy and Rachel. So I put it to you. Should we try another vote or should we flip a coin or should we wait till next time when we have an odd number?
Do we just ask David to vote?
What's that?
Just ask David to vote.
Just ask David to vote. David's not with us, I don't think, right? He's not on the line. No, but he said he would try and join electronically, but he's not there. We could do that and we could get back to you on it. I mean, here's the number, right? He's the odd number. You're fine either way. Okay, it sounds like we should have David vote. Okay. Well, I thank you. What do you think? It's kind of late. What's that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess my only concern is he doesn't have any context and hasn't heard the people. I think
That's
maybe it's
true.
unfair to
It's
the
true.
individuals here.
I mean, he was engaged when he was present, but you're absolutely right that he didn't hear the think you probably should. I mean, obviously, two very worthy candidates. So it's a coin toss or wait till next time. Should we do a coin toss? Chris is our.
Get the app. Got an app.
So wait a minute, we.
No, oh, no, now I got an ad, but I didn't pay for the app. So flip the coin.
So someone needs to call, right?
Or we could say what Sandy's head and Rachel's tail. Everybody ready?
Are you ready?
Head, tail. Tails.
Rachel's in. So we have Rachel and Helen as our co-chairs. I thank you. I congratulate you. And I want to thank you all for your terrific work tonight. We made a lot of ground and I think we'll close the meeting. At 10:08.
Guys.